Existence was nothing but pain for a boy named Lo. As an orphan abandoned in a desolate village, he became the perfect punching bag. The older boys showed no mercy, dumping their cruelest burdens onto his fragile shoulders. In this unforgiving reality, power was the only law. Rankings divided the world into two distinct categories, the absolute strong and the worthless trash. But destiny is cruel. One fateful day, the sky itself seemed to collapse. A massive island descended from the heavens, obliterating everything Lo had ever known in a single heartbeat. Desperate, Lo scrambled back to his home, his lungs burning. But upon arrival, only a colossal crater remained. As he collapsed in soul-crushing despair, a presence materialized from the shadows behind him. It was Adal, the legendary Rank One. He coldly ordered the survivor to leave, but Lo refused to back down. Through his tears, he demanded to know the truth of this calamity. His will to live defied all logic. Suddenly, a vibrant green energy exploded around Lo's body. The sheer intensity of his aura was enough to shake even the mighty Adal to his core. In that split second, the Rank One realized the truth. This boy possessed the potential to become a monster. From that day forward, Lo's hellish training began. It was torture disguised as discipline. He was hurled off jagged cliffs, used as live bait for sea beasts, and buried in freezing snow. Every single day, he swung his sword 1,000 times without fail. His prana was overwhelming, a destiny written in the stars to surpass every genius in existence. But our story truly begins years later, in the humble village of Tully. The young man, Lo, stood before a mountain of timber. With surgical precision, he split the wood, gazing at his work with a sense of quiet satisfaction. A village boy approached, demanding Lo sharpen his blade. As usual, Lo simply agreed. But suddenly, a blur of motion struck a girl, slapped the bully, sending him crashing to the dirt. It was Yuna, and she was furious. She shouted at them to stop treating Lo like a servant. The boy protested that Lo looked bored, but Yuna wasn't having it, claiming Lo was just too easily distracted. She scolded her friend for using Lo like a mere tool. Lo tried to intervene, claiming he didn't mind the work, but Yuna cut him off with a vehement objection. She admitted that his kindness was his greatest weakness. Her eyes softened with worry, but then, a spark of mischief lit up her face. She had an idea. Leaning in close, she whispered a dangerous proposition. Leaving the village, she had discovered a secret route, but before they could move, a sharp voice cracked through the air like a whip. It was Yuna's grandmother. Her face was a mask of stern authority, as she demanded to know if they had forgotten the village's absolute law. No one leaves. Yuna demanded a reason for their imprisonment. A village man grabbed Yuna, while the grandmother ordered her to be locked away. Yuna screamed in frustration. It always ended in this same, suffocating cycle. Turning from the chaos, the man asked Lo for a favor. "Fetch the water," he requested. Without a moment's hesitation, Lo agreed, leaving the man stunned by his obedience. From the sidelines, Yuna watched with disdain. She declared she was done doing things with him. An observer noted the irony. The only two children of the same age. Yet they were fire and ice. The villager asked if Lo wanted to rest and live for himself. But Lo shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "I will help." Memories of the past flooded his mind. Losing his parents, the crushing loneliness, and the village that took him in when he was nothing. They became his shield against the cold world. His heart was filled with a singular purpose, to repay that debt. He loved this village, and every soul within it more than his own life. Moved to tears, the man offered to adopt Lo into his own family. But the boy gently refused. To him, the villagers were already family, far more important than anything the outside world could offer. Meanwhile, Yuna raged inside a bamboo cage, screaming for freedom. Her grandmother sighed, wishing her rebellious granddaughter possessed even an ounce of Lo's obedience. Yuna's spirit remained unbroken. She questioned why merchants could enter freely, yet they were prisoners. The world was vast and calling to her. Why were they forced to rot in this cage? The grandmother's expression darkened. She finally revealed the chilling truth. "We are the targets of a great resentment." Shocked, Yuna asked who was hunting them. The old woman turned away. "You do not need to know," she said ominously. "Time will reveal all fate's secrets." Elsewhere, Lo was drawing water from the well. High above, he noticed the sky bleeding with a strange crimson energy. Ignoring the omen, he finished filling the buckets. Suddenly, a pebble bounced off his head. Confused, he scanned the area until he spotted Yuna, grinning from behind a boulder. He started to call out, but she frantically signaled for silence. She pointed to herself, then to the horizon. Lo sighed, realizing the situation. "Did you escape again?" he asked. She scoffed, boasting that getting caught so often had made her a master of escape. Lo retorted dryly that being a jailbreak expert wasn't exactly a skill to brag about. With a mischievous smile that spelled trouble, Yuna beckoned him to follow. Lo looked stunned. He warned her about Grandma's wrath, but she promised they would be back before anyone noticed. She stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. "There is something you need to see," she whispered intensely. Curiosity won the battle. He followed her through a sun-drenched forest trail until she stopped abruptly. Pointing ahead, she announced, "We're here." Lo's eyes went wide. They stood at the edge of a massive cliff. Below them lay a sprawling valley and a river of sapphire blue that stretched into eternity. Radiating excitement, Yuna told him to behold the vast world. Lo was breathless, whispering that it was incredible. Yuna smiled, a deeper meaning in her eyes, and asked if he knew the laws of the outside. "Laws?" Lo asked, confused. She pulled out a forbidden book she had smuggled from a merchant and opened it between them. She explained the cruel reality of the ranking system. In the lands beyond, every human was classified by their strength and profession. Nothing was exempt. Weapons, food, wealth, everything had a rank. It was a world of suffocating competition where only the elite survived. Her eyes burned with ambition. "I want to be a ranker," she declared. She wanted to explore the abyss, compete with the best, and have the world chant her name. Determination flickered in Lo's eyes, but the village rules held him back like chains. Annoyed by his hesitation, Yuna snapped, "I don't care about the rules. I am leaving." She extended her hand, an invitation to destiny. "Come with me," she urged. She insisted that a cage was no place for someone like him. She asked if he remembered the day the giant bird attacked when she was 5. A memory surfaced. Lo standing before the beast, a simple stick in hand, emitting a terrifying energy. "You saved me that day," she reminded him. Lo frowned, the memory hazy. "Did that really happen?" he asked uncertainly. Excitement bubbled in her voice. "I saw it. Green energy wrapped around you." While Lo pondered a strange sound he had heard back then, Yuna grinned. She knew the truth. He was hiding a power that could shake the world. When he finally unleashed his true strength, he was unrivaled, a force of nature. She reached out to him, her voice filled with hope, promising that his light would shine brighter than any star out there. She danced away through the flower field, light as a feather. Lo remained rooted to the spot, silence stretching between them. His heart was tied to this village. He couldn't leave, not even for glory. Frustrated by his stubbornness, she called him a fool and playfully smacked him with a branch before storming off. "Stay safe, idiot," she shouted. Lo watched her silhouette fade, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. He stood alone, weighing her decision against the rankings that dictated their world. Above him, the sky began to shift, bleeding from azure into a bruised purple and burning orange. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he turned back toward home. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A massive shadow eclipsed the twilight. A colossal, floating fortress dominated the sky. It pulsed with a terrifying blue aura, the air vibrating with raw, unbridled energy. Lo froze, his eyes widening as confusion morphed into instinctive fear. The heavens screamed. A beam of pure annihilation fired from the object, crashing into the forest with the force of a nuclear impact. The ground quaked violently. The shockwave nearly knocked him flat. Denial flooded his mind as he scrambled to his feet, sprinting desperately. "Please," he prayed. "Let it be gone." Panic twisted his features. He refused to believe the nightmare unfolding before him. He forced himself to think of Yuna, of the smiling villagers. They had to be okay. He pushed his body to the limit, lungs burning, until he skidded to a halt at the edge of the village, or where the village used to be. Terror seized his soul. A gigantic crater scarred the earth, stretching endlessly beneath the blood-red sky. It was a scene of unprecedented devastation. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He stared into the abyss, his mind fracturing as he tried to convince himself this wasn't his home. "Yuna," he screamed, his voice tearing at his throat. "Grandmother! Anyone!" Memories flashed before his eyes, Yuna's smile, her promise to stay by his side forever. He saw the villagers' faces, heard them calling him family. His legs gave out, and he collapsed at the crater's edge, his expression a mask of pure agony. "Why?" he sobbed, tears carving paths through the dust on his face. Once again, he was just a spectator to tragedy, powerless to save the things he loved. Rage boiled in his veins. Always too late, always watching. A shadow loomed over him, a warrior standing amidst the ruin, eyes fixed on the weeping boy. Lo sensed the man's overwhelming presence. The warrior stepped closer, his voice trembling slightly. "Are you a survivor of Tully Village?" "Yes," Lo managed to choke out. The man looked away, his face grim. "The island is gone." Lo blinked, his mind reeling. "What island? Do you know what that thing in the sky really was?" The warrior pressed. Desperate for answers, Lo grabbed the man's armor, begging for the truth about his home. Tears blurred his vision as he demanded to know what happened. Sweating nervously, the warrior shoved a crumpled note into Lo's hands. "Forget this place," the warrior commanded. "Go to these coordinates. Survive." Lo slapped the note away, pointing furiously at the destruction. "I'm not going anywhere. The village didn't just vanish. the warrior roared, losing his composure. This isn't a world for children. You can't handle the truth. Tell me, Lo screamed, grabbing him again. The man turned his back, telling him to forget everything. But Lo would not yield. He felt it then, the dormant power awakening. A blinding green aura exploded outward, enveloping him. I will go to that floating hell, he vowed, energy pulsing, and I will bring them back, no matter the cost. Tragedy was woven into Lo's very existence. He remembered the landslide that had stolen his parents, leaving him a shivering orphan in the dark. He had been alone, huddled in the void of fear and loss. But then, a hand had reached out. The villagers of Tully had saved him. Yuna had saved him with her eternal smile. She had been his anchor, and the villagers his sanctuary. They were good people who couldn't bear to see a child suffer. The emerald energy surged violently, matching his resolve. I will never forget them, he swore to the heavens. I am going to that island, and I am taking my family back. The warrior stepped back, stunned. The space around the boy was warping visually. This amount of prana, he muttered. Prana, the mental energy of the soul. It poured from Lo like a tidal wave, dense and suffocating. It is a force inherent in all living things, yet few can wield it. But true prodigies can manifest it at will. Though usually invisible, those with god-tier potential can make the air itself tremble and glow. A special type of prana, the warrior realized. The rumors were true. The people of Tully were descendants of the Babel race. He looked at the boy with new eyes. This child didn't need protection. He needed to be unleashed. A massive throne sword materialized from thin air, driving into the earth with a heavy thud. Take it, the warrior ordered. Go to the island. If you have the potential, the warrior added, a dangerous glint in his eye. I will train you myself. Lo looked up, surprised by the offer. But there was no time for hesitation. A crimson aura erupted from the warrior, clashing with Lo's green energy. Attack me, he roared. Strike to kill. Lo charged, the heavy blade awkward in his grip. The warrior parried the blow effortlessly. The boy was a complete novice with a sword. Yet, as their blades connected, the warrior felt it. An immense, crushing pressure radiating from the boy's small frame. It was heavier than anything he had anticipated. The wave of prana wasn't just strong. It was a natural disaster waiting to happen. He is a monster, the warrior thought, a grin forming despite himself. A true legend has awakened. A pillar of emerald light pierced the clouds, announcing Lo's power to the world. That place, the warrior explained as the light faded, is the island of gods. It drifts across the oceans, a harbinger of doom. It appears rarely, but leaves only silence and ash in its wake. His expression darkened with regret. I tried to destroy it once, he confessed, staring at the sky. But the island escaped my wrath. Legend whispered that those consumed by that mysterious light were transported to the Isle of Gods. Desperate, the boy asked if touching the radiance would take him there too. But the warning was stark. It was only a theory, and the unknown consequences could be fatal. Then tell me, he pleaded. How do I get there? The warrior's eyes narrowed. There was only one direct path. To reach the realm of the gods, he had to become a legend. He needed to ascend into the top 10 of the adventurer rankings. The words echoed in his mind, heavy with destiny. Adventurer rankings. These were the elite professionals who conquered the unknown and expanded the frontiers of humanity. The warrior's voice turned grave. This ranking held the fiercest competition in the world. And the top 10? They were not men, but absolute monsters. If he could stand at that summit, the path to the Isle of Gods would open. His hand clenched into a fist, trembling with resolve. But there was a catch. Adal revealed that the Isle of Gods was ranked number 1 among the forbidden zones. Those who entered rarely returned with their lives. Do you still wish to walk this path of death? The warrior asked. Yes, came the unhesitating reply. The warrior's gaze bore into him, weighing his soul. Very well. He agreed to train the boy for exactly 1 year. The curriculum, the absolute mastery of the sword. Adal extended a hand, his offer clear. The boy was to use the strongest knight as a mere stepping stone to climb the rankings alone. The man finally introduced himself properly. Adal, humanity's strongest knight, the number 1 existence on the knight rankings. And your name? Adal asked. Luo, the boy replied softly. Their hands met in a pact, sealing his fate. But Adal warned him the road ahead was paved with blood. With a knowing smile, Adal dropped a bombshell. I was the first to tread this path. Instantly, the fire of determination ignited in Luo's eyes. As Adal finished speaking, he demonstrated why he was the strongest, flooring the boy with a single, imperceptible blow. Thus began a year of hell. Blisters burst and reformed on his hands and feet daily. Even as his muscles tore and screamed in agony, he refused to stop. He pushed beyond the limits of the human body. Bones shattered and healed. Blood soaked his clothes as he fought tirelessly against his mentor, day after excruciating day. After that first day, Adal never spoke of the Isle of Gods again. It was a silent test, force the boy to find his own resolve, or break under the pressure and quit. Yet, Luo held on to one hope: the villagers were still alive. He obsessed over the mystery. Why had his home vanished? What was that cursed island truly? The intensity of his training was so severe that his shoes disintegrated from the sheer friction of his movements. But he stood tall, fueled by the need for truth. He swore to conquer the adventurer rankings. Seasons changed, and 1 year later, they stood amidst a lush, green wilderness. "Are you ready?" Adal asked. The reply came without hesitation. "I have been ready for a long time." His eyes burned with a warrior's spirit. He remembered Yuna, and her voice declaring her dream to become a top-tier adventurer. Years ago, she had reached out her hand, inviting him to explore the world by her side. But Yuna, who longed for the horizon, had vanished with the rest. Now, he embarked on that journey alone, carrying the weight of her dream on his shoulders. "Then go," Adal commanded. Luo nodded solemnly. The knight smirked, noting that at 17, his disciple had truly grown both in height and power. The legend began here. The young warrior, the sole disciple of humanity's strongest knight, marched toward the Isle of Gods. His map marked the kingdom of Balar and the ruins of Tuli village. Beyond the horizon rose the royal capital, Trakista, a colossal metropolis dominating the center of the world. Dominating the city skyline stood the Bureau of Recognition. Inside, amidst towers of paperwork, a girl lay slumped over her desk, fast asleep. The clock ticked ominously. Suddenly, she jolted awake, panic flooding her veins. She had overslept. In the corridor, a senior colleague sighed. "Did you stay up all night analyzing the rankings again?" The girl rubbed her eyes. "Why not? I belong to the Bureau of Recognition. It's my job." Her senior shook her head. "Precisely because you determine the fate of warriors, you must maintain your condition. Your judgment affects lives." The young analyst fell silent, absorbing the reprimand. The Bureau was no ordinary office. It was the supreme authority that quantified power, evaluating skills and updating the global rankings. This role demanded vast knowledge and absolute impartiality. To judge who is superior and who is inferior requires the weight of a judge's gavel. Even the judges were judged. Professionals in this sanctuary of data underwent rigorous evaluations themselves. It was widely considered one of the most grueling professions in existence, a realm reserved only for the truly elite. "I know," she admitted. "I'm still a low-level employee. I have to work harder than anyone else to climb the ladder." "And what is your goal?" the woman asked. The girl's eyes sparkled. "There are so many things I want to achieve." As they ascended the stairs, the senior offered advice. "If you want a promotion, become an exclusive agent for a high-tier ranker." "I've thought about it," she sighed. "But none of them catch my eye." The woman teased her high standards, but the girl scoffed. "No, it's because today's rankers are pathetic." Passion flared in her voice. In the Golden Age, the competition for the rankings was a war of blood and glory. But now? The top spots are stagnant. Fixed. It makes our work here feel utterly meaningless. Still, she stood her ground. The rankings only held power because they were constantly in flux. The older woman laughed, asking if she was a ranking maniac. The young woman confirmed it with a grin, admitting she was a hopeless case. But then, a thought crossed her mind. Would a rising star ever appear? Someone capable of completely shattering the current hierarchy? The woman's eyes twinkled. Perhaps that star was closer than she thought. Ahead of them, a room packed with people waited on the benches. Taking in the scene, the young woman gasped. Was the third-year adventurer registration exam always this chaotic? Usually, the crowd was much thinner, but the examiner explained the surge. It was all because of the Azabon forest, which had entered the danger zone rankings just 2 months ago. The young woman nodded in understanding. The competition this year was fierce. Discreetly, the examiner pointed out a heavy hitter. Mercenary ranker, 753, Owl Darcis, leader of the Red Dragon Company and a blacksmith prodigy. Next, she singled out another threat. Archer ranker, 402, Eddie Markman. He hailed from a renowned archery clan. His own brother already held the 7th position in the rankings. The list of elites went on. She asked if the young woman had spotted the merchant ranker nearby. Knights, sailors, and even guides. The room was crawling with specialized talent. Impressed by the analysis, the older woman smiled. It was second nature to her. As a member of the Bureau of Recognition, she could appraise a person's rank at a single glance. That adventurer title was the golden ticket. It offered convenience and was essential for entering restricted zones like the forest. Suddenly, the chime of a bell cut through the noise. A man in a dark overcoat stood at the counter. The woman signaled him to wait as she initiated the registration sequence. He spoke plainly, introducing himself. He was here to register for the rankings. She explained the rules. While updates could happen anywhere, initial registration was exclusive to headquarters. Lowe expressed his interest in joining the ranks. Seizing the moment, she invited him to the exam, starting right now. With a curt yes, he accepted the challenge. The clerk handed him the form for his details. The fee was 3,000 del. Without hesitation, Lo paid the price. Everything was set. The man thanked her and was directed to the waiting room. He was officially candidate number 53. As he walked away, Lo and the young woman exchanged a fleeting glance. She remarked that some people still had no clue what the Bureau of Recognition actually did. The examiner sighed. It had been ages since she had to explain the basics. Then, she asked for assistance with the exam preparations. The young woman agreed. Sometimes, working from the shadows wasn't so bad. When asked if she was being sarcastic, she swore she was serious. Stepping up as the examiner, the older woman announced the start of the Adventurer Rank Registration Exam. 3 stages stood between them and glory. A written exam, a practical test, and a final round that would be revealed when the time was right. Survival depended on the total score. She urged them to push forward, even if one stage seemed impossible. The written test began immediately. Silence fell as candidates attacked their papers with intense focus, but panic soon set in. One student realized the questions were brutal, covering every topic imaginable. Time was up. The examiner called for pencils down. She announced the practical stage would commence in the forest in 2 hours. They were to wait while the papers were graded. Behind the scenes, the assistant was called in to help grade the flood of exams. She agreed instantly. The 2 women scanned through the piles. Suddenly, the assistant's eyes went wide as she picked up a specific paper. She recognized the handwriting instantly. It belonged to number 53, Lo, the man with the dead eyes. Her jaw dropped. The test was a complete catastrophe. Failing marks covered the page. Every single answer was wrong. Still, she forced herself to finish grading, shaken by the disastrous performance. 2 hours later, the examiner addressed the survivors. The practical test was simple, a treasure hunt in the forest. They had to collect listed items to score points. But there were rules. Combat was strictly prohibited. Possession went to whoever touched the item first. Meanwhile, 2 participants were already bragging, loud and proud about their herb and insect skills, utterly convinced victory was theirs. The signal fired. The examiner declared the second stage open, and the crowd surged into the forest like a tidal wave. Deep in the woods, the assistant finally let out a breath, grateful for a moment of peace amidst the chaos. How many will survive this round? The examiner mused, while her colleagues smirked, estimating barely half would make the cut. Watching the students scramble, she noted that true skill reveals itself in motion and turned to the assistant. Anyone catch your eye yet? A sigh escaped the other woman's lips. Pathetic. Not a single one has shown me anything worth watching. Suddenly, a shadow emerged from the trees. Am I first? Darkus asked calmly, tossing a wriggle stone worth 120 points onto the table. The examiner blinked, confused. You are back already? There is still plenty of time on the clock. His expression was pure ice. I pass regardless. That is all that matters. She tried to explain that higher points meant a better rank, but he cut her off. I am a mercenary. Adventurer rankings mean nothing to me. Just then, footsteps pounded the ground. Markman burst onto the scene, demanding to know who was first, holding up a tail feather worth 180 points. The examiner verified the item from a common bird, and Darkus sneered, looking down his nose. All that arrogance for a simple pigeon feather? Markman bristled with defensive rage. This is not just a feather. It comes from a beast that flies silently at 500 kilometers per hour. Darkus rolled his eyes at the display. With jokes like that, you should have applied for the circus, not the guild. Sparks flew as Markman challenged him, and Darkus accepted without hesitation, while the assistant watched with glee and the examiner sighed at the fragile pride of rankers. Asterisk, thud. Asterisk. A heavy footstep silenced the argument. The assistant froze, her eyes widening at the question that followed. Darkus, Markman, and the examiner turned in unison to see Lo, casually dragging the massive carcass of a slain brown bear. Sword in hand, he dumped the beast at their feet. It was undeniably dead, and the examiners leaned in, inspecting the kill with disbelief. Lo scratched his head innocently. Can I just turn in the whole thing? I have no idea how to extract the gallbladder. Stunned by his raw ignorance yet undeniable strength, the examiner stammered, yes. That is possible. A murmur rippled through the gathering students. A bare gallbladder was worth 300 points. How did he take down a monster like that solo? The assistant narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Your written exam was a catastrophe. How did you even know this was a brown bear? They show up near my village all the time, Lo shrugged. And the examiner's jaw dropped when she realized where he hailed from. Did anyone actually see the battle? The assistant demanded, scanning the crowd for answers. A trembling voice spoke up from the group. I saw it by chance, but I can hardly believe my own eyes. The memory replayed vividly. Lo had drawn his sword, and in a single flash, the massive beast had collapsed before it even knew it was dead. The assistant stared at Lo, her gaze sharp and calculating. This boy was an anomaly. 1 hour later, deep in the underground arena, the examiner asked the crowd what an adventurer should fear before answering herself. Magical beasts. And other humans. Her voice echoed. Your duty is to tread where others dare not. Into the unknown. Bandits. Pirates. Monsters. She listed grimly. To survive these threats, you need overwhelming power. Therefore, she shouted, the final exam is a mock battle. You will fight each other for supremacy. Do not misunderstand, she warned. We are evaluating your individual combat skills, not just who remains standing. Darkus smirked as he realized the truth. The lack of details was intentional to test their adaptability. Suddenly, a hulking mountain of a man stepped into Darkus's path. I challenge you to a fight. The brute sneered. You only picked up a rock last round. Don't think a mercenary rank scares me. You don't deserve third class, he roared, throwing a punch to crush Darkus's skull. But Darkus blocked it effortlessly with his blade. In a blur of motion, Darkus struck, sending the giant man crumbling to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Darkus sheathed his weapon. My apologies, examiner. He insulted me. She waved it off. The fool had failed the moment he lost control. As the unconscious body was dragged away, whispers spread. Idiot. Messing with the third class? Those guys are monsters. The examiner scanned the list, wondering who could possibly match Darkus, while a voice suggested number 53. But the assistant wasn't listening. Her eyes were glued to Lo, deep in thought. While the examiner debated Darkus's match, another staff member pointed toward number 53 as a potential candidate. Excuse me, the assistant interrupted. The examiner looked up. Can I choose Lo's opponent personally? Surprised, the examiner nodded consent. The arena erupted into chaos as multiple battles broke out simultaneously, steel clashing against steel. Moments later, the voice boomed over the speakers. Next match, number 27 versus number 41. The examiner drops a bombshell. The final challenger, number 53, has been summoned. But the odds are rigged. Numbers 27 and 41 must join forces to take down Lo. Darkus scoffs at the absurdity, questioning if this is a joke. Beside him, Markman narrows his eyes, his pride wounded. It has been a long time since anyone dared to underestimate him like this. The assistant hesitates, asking if such a lopsided match is wise. But the examiner's resolve is ironclad. She nods. She knows exactly what she is doing. Her eyes gleam with anticipation as she turns her gaze to Lo. In her mind, the verdict is already clear. That boy is a monster. In the center of the arena, the atmosphere tightens. Lo stands ready, facing down the combined might of Darkus and Markman. From the sidelines, the professor and her assistant lock onto the scene, refusing to miss a single heartbeat of the coming storm. The young challenger settles into his stance, calm as a still lake. Opposite him, the duo falls into formation, radiating killing intent. Darkus looms large, striking an imposing figure. As the leader of the notorious Red Wolf Mercenary Company, his presence alone demands respect. Just last year, his company carved their name in blood by dismantling the feared Kimura Mafia. Legends say Darkus single-handedly crushed 7 enemy commanders, including the Don himself. His partner is no less formidable. Markman, the young master of the legendary Archer clan, raised by the former second-ranked archer in the world. His pedigree is flawless. By age 5, his name was already etched into the rankings. A true prodigy. Now, Lo stares down these titans, dissecting their every breath. To the crowd, he is nobody, just a nameless lamb led to the slaughter. The tension snaps. The professor raises her hand and signals the commencement of violence. Markman moves instantly. An arrow screams through the air, seeking blood. But Lo weaves effortlessly, the deadly projectile whistling harmlessly past his ear. Darkus roars and charges like a bull. But Lo doesn't retreat. He matches the mercenary's velocity, a blur of motion meeting force with agility. Steel sings against steel. Their blades collide with bone-shaking force, erupting into a furious exchange of strikes that showers the arena in sparks. The speed is inhuman. A spectator strains to see, asking his friend for updates. But it's useless. Only the terrifying rhythm of clashing metal can be heard. Amidst the chaos, Lo's eyes are cold, locked onto his adversary with terrifying focus. Darkus lunges, aiming for a finishing blow, but hits an impenetrable wall of defense. Shock flashes across the mercenary's face. This kid's speed is impossible. Seizing the opening, the young challenger pivots, spinning his body to unleash a devastating counter. But his instincts scream. Lo refocuses instantly, spotting a volley of arrows raining down from above. Markman has not been idle. Poetry in motion. With a single precise swing, Lo slices the lead arrow in midair. His blade dances, deflecting the rest of the barrage with calculated perfection. The impact is catastrophic. The very ground fractures beneath the deflected force, sending shockwaves through the terrified crowd. A bystander freezes, inches away from death. Standing amidst the destruction, Lo gazes down at his opponents, his dominance absolute. Darkus grits his teeth, convinced this swordsman must be a high-ranking knight in disguise. Even the arrogant archer admits he has never witnessed skill like this. Calmly, the young man breaks his silence. He asks a simple question. Are you two affiliated with other rankings? Markman announces he holds rank 4002 among archers. The mercenary leader barks that he sits at spot 753 in the mercenary guild. Lo nods, muttering a simple, understood. Suddenly, the air grows heavy. A verdant aura begins to ignite around his body. He makes a bold declaration. If I defeat you both, I will surely ascend to the triple-digit ranks. Boom! The emerald energy explodes outward. The sheer pressure forces the spectators to scramble back instinctively. Markman flinches as the power manifests before his eyes. Darkus trembles, suffocated by the sudden, overwhelming intimidation radiating from this unknown boy. The assistant gasps, unable to look away. To see Prana manifest physically, and with such magnitude, it is unheard of. Recovering his wits, the archer sneers. He explains that rankings aren't tied solely to one profession. He repeats his low archer ranking of 4002, drawing his bowstring to its limit. Then, the truth comes out. I am also ranked 78 on the sharpshooter rankings. He fires, but it doesn't matter. In a heartbeat, Markman is silenced, defeated instantly. Silence falls. Darkus stands alone, staring at Lo, who remains bathed in that terrifying green light. The prodigy archer lies unconscious in the dirt. The mercenary's eyes bulge in disbelief. The two warriors lock eyes in a heavy, suffocating standoff. Swords raise. But while Lo's gaze burns with fighting spirit, the mask of the mercenary crumbles. Fear begins to crawl across Darkus's face. Lo vanishes. He reappears instantly within the guard, his blade hovering a mere inch from the mercenary's throat. Darkus shrieks. Wait! It is over. Stripped of his pride, Darkus drops his weapon and throws his hands up in total surrender. His voice trembles as he offers a desperate excuse. He has work to do later, and passing out like his partner would be a logistical nightmare. Lo stares into his soul for a long second. Satisfied, he sheathes his blade. Understood. Darkus turns away, sweating, thinking, this kid is a genuine monster, but the victor does not celebrate. Lo stands lost in the turmoil of his own mind, asking himself, who am I, really? The crowd is left paralyzed. A whisper breaks the silence. He just crushed two triple-digit rankers like they were nothing. Even the assistant stood paralyzed, witnessing a level of talent that defied logic. The duel ended in an instant. The professor raised a hand, declaring Lo the undisputed winner. But the assistant didn't stick around to celebrate. She was already sprinting out the door, leaving the professor confused in her wake. She tore through the academy halls, breathless, until she burst into the central command room. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, hacking into the surveillance feed. The screens flickered to life, revealing the agency's top-secret database. She needed answers, and she needed them now. She punched in the search code. Candidate number 53. A profile flashed onto the monitor. The name burned into her retinas. Lo Tuli. She scanned the data. 17 years old, 0 ranking history, no academy background. He was a ghost, likely a self-taught prodigy from the lawless outer zones. The background check dug deeper. No criminal record, no ties to dark cults. He was a complete blank slate. Her eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't just a rookie, this was a rough diamond. Realizing she had struck gold, she abandoned the monitors and bolted from the room. Lo Tuli! She screamed, racing back toward the arena. She had to sign him as her client before the vultures descended, but she was too late. By the time she skidded to a halt, Lo was already swarmed by a mob of aggressive agents. She let out a frustrated groan. She had been beaten to the punch. Amateurs, she hissed, clenching her fists. You don't offer an exclusive contract without running a background check first. Surrounded by the chaos, Lo looked genuinely confused. He turned to the crowd. What exactly is an exclusive ranking agent? Seeing her chance, she shoved through the mob. I'll explain, she beamed, breathless. An exclusive agent is your lifeline. We manage your status and update your ranking in real time. She continued rapidly. Normally, you'd have to wait weeks for the agency to send an evaluator just to process a single update. But with an exclusive agent? She snapped her fingers. Your ranking updates the second you achieve a feat. Instantly. For a wandering adventurer constantly on the move, it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. To prove her point, she whipped a sleek glowing device from her pocket. Behold, the rank tell, she announced. This terminal gives us direct access to the central network. Her expression turned serious. If you want to climb the ladder efficiently, hiring a specialist isn't an option. It's a requirement. Lo fell silent, processing her words. The idea of cutting through the red tape was tempting. Efficiency was key. Fine, he said. his voice cutting through the chatter. He stood with the assistant by his side, addressing the entire gaggle of agents. "I have one condition," Lo declared, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Who here can guarantee they will get me into the top 10 of the adventurer rankings?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine. The agents exchanged nervous glances. The top 10? That realm was reserved for literal monsters, not rookies. Even with Lo's terrifying sword skills, aiming for the peak so soon was borderline suicidal. Their silence was the only answer he needed. As the agents murmured in doubt, the assistant looked visibly offended by their lack of faith. Lo turned and walked up the stairs, leaving the stunned crowd behind, but the assistant refused to give up. "Wait!" she screamed, chasing after him once more. She caught up to him in the courtyard, matching his stride as they headed for the exit. "Lo Tully." "Why?" she demanded, breathless. "Why are you so obsessed with the top 10? Lo didn't even glance at her. "None of your business." He kept walking, cold and detached. But she stepped in his path. "If I'm going to be your agent, you make it my business." She slammed her hand on her chest. "I am your exclusive scout agent now." Lo scoffed, clearly annoyed by her persistence. He didn't need a handler. "I'm not dragging a kid into a war zone," he said flatly. The words hit her like a slap. She froze, stunned by the insult. "Kid!" she exploded with indignation. "I am a professional scout agent, and look in the mirror, you're just a boy yourself." Lo stopped and turned, his gaze piercing. "Even if you weren't a child, the answer is still no. My path is a solo one," he stated bluntly. "I won't involve civilians in my battles." He stared her down, expecting her to fold, but she didn't flinch. "I have a mission too," she whispered, her eyes burning with intensity. "A mission I'd trade my life to complete. That's why I'm going with you." The air crackled between them. This wasn't a whim, it was a vow. Lo felt a shift. He recognized that look, the same resolve that drove him to reach the island and save his people. His expression softened. "It seems we both have a duty we cannot ignore." They stood side by side, the massive agency building looming behind them, a symbol of the dangerous world they were about to conquer together. She extended a hand, her voice steady. "I promise to take you to the level of an elite ranker." He took her hand. "Lo Tully." "Deal." The handshake sealed their fate. As night claimed the city, the skyline erupted into a dazzling sea of artificial lights. Later, inside a sleek high-rise apartment, the room glowed with the ambient light of the metropolis below. The assistant leaned back with a satisfied smile. "So? How do you like the new base?" "I rented it for a few days," she explained. "Consider it our temporary headquarters." Lo scanned the tidy room, impressed. "You're more competent than I gave you credit for." Naturally, she tossed her bag onto the floor. But Lo wasn't done. "It's the perfect environment for your 1-week trial period." Her jaw dropped. "Trial period?" She erupted into complaints, while Lo simply offered a casual, unapologetic shrug. Her anger flared, and she mimicked his bow with exaggerated mockery, vowing to prove her worth before the deadline expired. His expression remained stone cold as he replied that he was actually looking forward to it. Annoyance bubbled within her. She snapped at him to stop acting like a bystander in his own life, baffled by how he could be a demon of war in combat, yet a total airhead the moment the fighting stopped. He offered a stiff, indifferent nod, admitting that was a complaint he heard all too often. A sudden vibration broke the tension. She whipped her device from her pocket, eyes locking onto the screen before thrusting it toward Lo. The verdict was finally in. The digital display glowed with his new reality. Lo Tully. Adventurer rank, 2728th. Beaming with excitement, the assistant congratulated him on the debut, asking if he was shocked by such an exceptional starting rank. But Lo wasn't impressed. He frowned, admitting he had expected a 3-digit number at the very least, prompting a puzzled look from her regarding his logic. His reasoning was simple and brutal. He had crushed 2 opponents with 3-digit rankings during the exam, so why wasn't he one of them? She shook her head, explaining the harsh truth. The adventurer ranking is a massive ocean of competitors, where climbing requires far more than just raw strength. Another electronic beep cut through the air, revealing a second stat. Swordsmanship rank, 58th place. Her smile returned, wider this time. She explained that global rankings weren't limited to total levels, and to be in the top 60 for swordsmanship immediately was monstrous. Lo blinked, genuinely surprised, and asked if being 58th was really something to brag about. She confirmed it with absolute conviction. That number proved he possessed the very essence of genius their agency was desperate to cultivate. Curious, Lo asked if his previous opponents held specific category rankings too, and she nodded, tapping the screen to reveal the deeper data. First up was Owl Darcis, whose profile was a wall of stats boasting high ranks in hand-to-hand combat, siege tactics, and endurance. Then came Eddie Markman, a true specialist with elite rankings in marksmanship, firing speed, and visual acuity. She explained that a true adventurer builds a portfolio across multiple disciplines to survive. She urged him to register for other categories to unlock more job offers, but Lo shut her down cold, stating he had zero interest in picking up extra work. A knowing smile played on her lips. Even in this short time, she was beginning to decode the enigma that was Lo Tully. She realized his goal wasn't money or fame. He intended to sprint to the top 10 of the adventurer ranking by the fastest, most reckless route possible. Seriously, she whispered, realizing he was trying to reach the legendary Azel of Gods. Lo stared back in silence, his gaze sharpening. The air grew heavy as he asked how she had figured out his ultimate objective. She explained that it was the ultimate privilege reserved only for the top 10, which was why she had interrogated him after the test. Lo conceded with a slight nod. In exchange for his honesty, she made a promise. When the time was right, she would reveal her own hidden agenda. Lo accepted the terms, but she warned him that her story wasn't something a rookie adventurer could easily comprehend. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper as she revealed that she wasn't chasing glory. She was hunting for the darkness of the rankings. Lo raised an eyebrow at the ominous phrase, but before he could press, she snapped back to her cheerful persona, waving it off as trivial. Her curiosity pivoted back to him. She needed to know the source of his monstrous power and sword skills. Calmly, Lo dropped the bomb. He had become the disciple of a knight named Adal only 1 year ago. The name hit her like a physical blow. She grabbed Lo by the shoulders, shaking him frantically while asking if he meant times Adal, the #1 knight. Lo nodded as if it were nothing, leaving her eyes wide with disbelief that he had trained for only a year, yet acted so nonchalant about it. Adal was a living legend who notoriously refused every student, ignoring hundreds of desperate requests for apprenticeship. Rumors claimed he was saving his legacy for the next #1 knight, a hope that drove countless warriors to train until their bones broke. Her mind raced as she connected the terrifying dots. Lo was the chosen heir. If the other knight orders found out about this, the entire world would flip upside down. Yet Lo stood there, scratching his head, asking if Adal was really that big of a deal, and she didn't hesitate to school him. "He is the strongest swordsman in the world," she cried, to which Lo simply shrugged and said, "Well, I managed to cut him with my sword." Impossible! Her brain short-circuited, and desperate to make sense of this insanity, she dove back into the database. There it was, the name Tully, a fresh registration glowing on the screen. While she analyzed the impossible data, Lo stood in silent observation. His mind drifted back to the past, where Adal stood before him, asking for a surname, and young Lo had just stared blankly, not even knowing what that meant. "Then take the name Lo Tully," Adal had commanded, "if you truly wish to walk the shortest path to the Isle of Gods." The master had warned him that the risk would be lethal, but if everything went according to plan, the clues they uncovered would be priceless. Lo had listened in silence, standing in the center of a circular ruin, a hidden training ground forgotten by time. "I understand the mission." Back in the present, the assistant's gaze hardened. She was looking at him differently now. She noted that Tully felt too heavy to be a mere alias. With a hand pressed firmly over his heart, Lo revealed the truth. Tully wasn't a mask. It was the name of his beloved family. A gentle smile softened the assistant's face. She nodded, thanking him for trusting her with such a fragile and personal secret. With the heavy conversation finished, Lo suggested they call it a night. Her long shift as a scout agent had finally come to an end. Silently, she pulled off her cap, letting her hair cascade down. Lo froze. His eyes went as wide as saucers as the realization hit him. He stammered, asking if she was actually a girl. She blinked, letting out a confused, "Huh?" Disbelief washed over her. Did he really not know until this very second? Lo bowed his head, offering a sincere apology for his incredible density. She gripped her hat tight, fingers trembling. She was torn between bursting into hysterical laughter or screaming at the top of her lungs. "Is that really all he has to say?" She fumed internally. Just then, the rattle of wheels broke the silence as a carriage pulled up on the quiet street. Sunlight flooded the room the next morning. The assistant lounged with a newspaper, but her casual reading quickly turned into shock as she scanned the headlines. She looked up to greet Lo as he descended the stairs, surprised by his early rise. But there was no morning smile from him, only a piercing, serious stare. He mumbled an excuse about needing water, trying to avoid eye contact. She cut him off immediately, demanding to know what was wrong with him. He insisted it was nothing, finally offering a proper greeting. She sighed, letting it slide, and wished him a good morning in return. She tied her hair back, ready for business, and suggested a coffee run. Lo adjusted his hat, knowing the road ahead was long, but this was the first crucial step. Her eyes lit up with excitement. It was time for a war council. She proposed a strategy meeting to launch him into the official adventurer rankings. The rich aroma of coffee filled the air as they settled in. She laid it out plainly. To climb the ladder of legends, he needed one thing: achievements. Land development and exploration were the basics, she explained. For a rookie like him, taking on official quests was the smartest move. Lo soaked in every word. She emphasized that the world relied on an adventurer's power, and quests were the perfect way for beginners to earn both gold and glory. She pulled out a sleek device, sliding it across the table. This tool was the key, granting him instant access to the quest network. Impressed by the tech, he nodded. She seized the moment to offer her services as his exclusive agent, but Lo remained cautious, saying he needed time to think. His ambition couldn't wait. He looked her in the eye and asked for a shortcut, a quest that would skyrocket his rank instantly. Only the Bureau's highest difficulty missions could do that, she warned. Before she could finish, his finger slammed down on the deadliest mission at the very top. Her face paled as she read the objective. He had to retrieve a lost treasure from an underwater temple in a rank 7 danger zone. That's suicide, she cried out. It was impossible for a rookie. But Lo didn't flinch, stating calmly that he wouldn't know his limits until he tested them. Frustration bubbled over. She snapped back that she didn't need to see him die to know the outcome. It was a guaranteed failure. She begged him to trust her professional eye. This wasn't bravery, it was stupidity. He would be a corpse long before he ever became a high ranker. He ignored the warning entirely. Instead, he asked a chilling question. Was the legendary Azel of Gods considered a rank 1 danger zone? Fire burned in his gaze. He locked eyes with her, declaring that backing down was simply not an option. She groaned internally. He was more stubborn than a mule. She needed a way to stop him, to smash that delusional confidence before it got him killed. A shadow fell over the table. A smiling man approached, asking if there was trouble. The assistant's eyes widened. She recognized him instantly as Loud. Long time no see, Loud greeted cheerfully. Lo looked between them, eyebrows raised, demanding to know who this stranger was. She rushed to introduce him. This was Loud, a living legend. She explained with awe that he stood at the summit, ranked 11th among all adventurers. 11th. Lo repeated the number, his expression sharpening as he gauged the man standing before him. His mind raced. The rankings were flooded with thousands of adventurers, but those at the very top, they were monsters in human skin. And this man was one of them, a high ranker, a true beast of the adventurer world. Lo calculated quickly. If Loud was rank 11, then surpassing him meant Lo would finally be ready to challenge the Azel of Gods. The assistant saw her chance. She turned to Loud, pleading for a favor. When he asked what she needed, she pointed a finger straight at Lo. Beat him, she demanded. The scene shifted to the colossal arena. Loud arrived a moment later, apologizing for the wait. The eyes of the crowd were always watching a top ranker. He admitted he hadn't planned on a duel today. He grabbed a borrowed light spear from the rack, twirling it. This will be more than enough, he decided. Across the sand, Lo stood tall. He bowed slightly, offering a formal introduction before the clash began. Loud waved it off. He claimed he was clumsy with polite words, and frankly, etiquette meant nothing in the savage world of the rankings. He casually mentioned that the assistant had handled his rank update previously. She's incredible, he noted, genuinely impressed by her skills. It wasn't just her knowledge, it was her obsession with accuracy. Loud respected that passion. It was a diamond in the rough among lazy agents. She blushed at the praise, realizing he accepted this duel just to help her. Loud swung the spear, testing its weight, mulling over her request to teach this rookie a harsh lesson. There was care in Loud's actions, but Lo wasn't focused on that. He watched the high ranker like a hawk, his skin prickling. He could feel the man's strength just by looking at him. A terrifying aura radiated from Loud. Lo froze his instincts, screamed that a single wrong breath would result in that spear piercing his heart. Panic rose in the assistant's chest. Seeing Lo paralyzed by the pressure, she screamed out his name, her face twisted in distress. With eyes full of resolve, she declared that this was his defining moment. It was time for him to witness just how vast the world truly was. Luo met her gaze with deadly seriousness, absorbing every syllable. But deep down, a question gnawed at him. Was this really just about the size of the world? In a heartbeat, the memory of his village flashed before his eyes. The tragedy, the flames, the past he could never escape. An intense aura erupted from his body. He roared that he already knew the weight of the world. Suddenly, a hologram materialized. The duel between Luo Tuli, rank 2728, and Loud, rank 11, was set. The assistant could barely contain the excitement. With a deafening shout, the signal was given. The duel begins now. Instantaneously, the distance vanished. Sword clashed against spear in a thunderous collision of steel. Luo wasted no time. He flooded his armor with prana, bracing for impact, and unleashed a devastating high-force strike. As Loud parried the heavy blow, he analyzed his opponent instantly. The boy was channeling prana into his limbs to boost agility. But this swordsmanship, it felt wrong. It didn't belong to him. The Sword Saint's technique was a legacy passed to only a single heir. It should be impossible for a mere boy to possess such a guarded secret. But the battlefield waits for no one. An attack from behind forced Loud to shatter his train of thought and react. Metal screamed against metal once more. Loud managed to intercept the strike, his defense impenetrable. A smirk played on Loud's lips. He taunted that he was barely breaking a sweat. Luo gritted his teeth in frustration, answering with a furious storm of heavier blows. Mid-clash, Loud sensed something off. The boy's prana was denser than his own, pulsating with an eerie glow. He leaped back, putting distance between them to reassess. Luo froze for a split second, confusion painted across his face at the sudden retreat. Loud's voice cut through the air. He demanded to know Luo's race. That strange glow was innate, not something learned. Don't play dumb, he warned. He spun his spear with lethal grace. If you stay silent, he threatened, I'll beat the answer out of you. Boom! He slammed the spear into the earth, cracking the ground. His eyes narrowed. Can you use enchantments too, boy? Luo blinked, caught off guard. Loud didn't wait. He began the chant words of a fierce stallion tearing across mountains, breath steaming in the air. A blinding golden aura exploded around him, illuminating the arena. The ground trembled. Countless energy swords erupted from the earth as the chant deepened, invoking the ancient Paulownia tree and the stillness of water. He finished with a solemn prayer for peace. This was the signature enchantment of the legendary Windblocker tribe. The assistant screamed in panic, begging Luo to counter with his own magic before it was too late. Loud's gaze was cold as steel. Use it, he warned, or you die right here. Finally, Luo's expression hardened into deadly focus. As the storm of energy swords surged forward, Luo braced himself. Loud simply adjusted his glasses, his focus sharp and absolute. The boy realized this power was on a different level. Loud raised his spear high, and the swarm of swords responded, obeying his command instantly. With a roar, he unleashed a cataclysmic blast of energy directly at Luo. Against all odds, Luo parried the barrage with his blade, but Loud scoffed. A common sword had no business blocking a high-tier enchantment. Snap. With a confident flick of his fingers, the trap sprang. Luo was instantly encircled by a cage of humming energy swords. Yet, the boy moved like water. He dodged and weaved, deflecting the deadly lights with terrifying agility. The dust settled. Loud stood tall and untouched, while Luo was forced to his knees on the ground. But the fire in Luo's eyes hadn't dimmed. Adal stepped in, noting that the boy was still fighting against his own prana flow. He will master it in time, Adal noted. Panting, Luo looked up. What techniques? He demanded. What am I missing? Watch closely, Adal commanded. His own sword began to scream, bathed in a menacing crimson aura. He declared he would demonstrate the foundation, the simplest yet most essential form. Suddenly, Luo's blade ignited with brilliant blue lightning. He activated the lightning blade and lunged. Loud's eyes widened. He recognized the Gale Force technique instantly. Fast, Loud muttered. The speed was undeniable. Loud raised his spear, transforming the weapon into an impenetrable shield. But Luo didn't stop. He pressed the attack, his sword becoming a blur of motion. Loud retaliated, summoning a halo of miniature golden blades around his body. He charged, brandishing lances of pure energy. The two forces collided in a violent explosion of power. A slash invisible to the naked eye cut the air. Loud barely dodged the lightning-fast strike and hurled his spear in a lethal counterthrow. Clang! Luo blocked the projectile, but the kinetic force was overwhelming. He was blasted backward like a ragdoll. He soared high into the air before crashing down hard. He lay there, gasping for breath, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Loud loomed over him. Not bad, he admitted. But with another snap of his fingers, he delivered the cold truth. The wall between us is still too high. The assistant froze in horror. Luo looked up, eyes wide, reflecting the glowing swords now encircling him completely. Fear gripped her heart. Luo stared blankly, finally understanding the crushing gravity of his situation. The real nightmare was just beginning. Loud raised a hand, his eyes cold with warning. You dare underestimate the weight of the rankings? In an instant, the sky turned gold as a merciless rain of swords descended upon him. The earth screamed. A catastrophic explosion of energy and debris erupted from the epicenter, swallowing everything in a blinding flash. As the dust settled, the devastating truth was revealed. The boy lay crushed in a crater, pinned like an insect by the golden blades embedded deep into the bedrock. The referee's voice cut through the silence. The match was over. Loud, rank 11, stood victorious. With a scoff, the warrior turned to the assistant. Are you satisfied now? She offered a polite thanks. Loud remarked that the boy must have finally realized the gap between them, and he nodded in agreement with his own assessment. His gaze drifted down to the broken figure on the ground. Did you honestly believe, Loud asked, his voice low, that he had a chance against me? The assistant kept her cool. I thought, it might be within the realm of possibility. Loud narrowed his eyes. Is that blind faith because he is Adal's disciple? She confirmed his suspicion. Loud's expression darkened. I recognize that movement, that high-speed strike. It's the signature of the Sword Saint. Loud paused, a frown creasing his brow. But that shouldn't be possible. The Sword Saint style is the apex of swordsmanship, he declared. A divine art passed down to a single successor among the elite knight rankers. His voice grew dangerous. For a mere adventurer to wield it, it's unnatural. It's as if a thief stole a sacred relic from a true knight. The assistant nodded gravely. You're right. I'll make sure he keeps a low profile. He cannot afford to cross paths with the wrong people. Wise, Loud affirmed. If a ranker or knight sees that technique, it won't just be a match lost, it will cost the boy his life. She watched the medics attend to Lo. If he carries himself with the dignity of a true knight, perhaps fate will overlook this transgression. Her eyes softened with hidden knowledge. Besides, there is something Lo must accomplish. A mission he deems essential, no matter how impossible it seems. The assistant then turned to Loud, dropping the facade. Do you want to know the real reason I bet on him? It wasn't just the style. Lo claims to have landed a hit on the puppet. Loud's eyes widened in genuine shock. The puppet? I know, she admitted. At his current level, it sounds insane. But look at him. He's not the type of man who lies for glory. Loud fell silent, processing the information. If that's true, then there was a variable I didn't account for. He looked back at his hands. His sword style was formidable, yes, but what truly unsettled me was the dense energy hidden within his prana. The assistant called out to leave, but Loud gripped his spear, a realization dawning on him. That boy, he's likely capable of using enchantments. A chill ran down his spine. If he had unleashed that power during our fight, the one lying in the dirt might have been me. The scene shifted to a memory bathed in sunlight. A girl stood in a kitchen, humming a soft, melancholic melody while she worked. Her face was serene, lost in a world of her own. Suddenly, the sharp voice of an older woman shattered the peace. What are you humming? The woman's face twisted in indignation. You fool! Do you not know? That cursed song is the very chains that bind us here. She forbade the girl from ever uttering the melody again. Understand the gravity of our fate. Silence that song. The girl's face fell, casting a shadow over her features. She remained silent, closing her eyes as a wave of deep, unspoken anguish washed over her. I'm sorry, Lo. A voice echoed from the void. At that precise second, the boy's eyes snapped open in the real world. He was wrapped in bandages, staring at a sterile ceiling. Where? The assistant leaned over, surprised. Oh? The sleeping beauty finally awakens. You're in the reconnaissance agency infirmary, she explained, checking his vitals. You've been out cold for an entire day. Lo blinked, disoriented. A whole day? Seriously? She smirked, out, like a light. The doctor said it was accumulated mental fatigue. Her expression turned serious. Aren't you rushing things a bit too much? Lo looked away, staring at the wall. The memory of the golden spears raining down the feeling of absolute helplessness flashed through his mind. He sighed, the weight of defeat heavy on his chest. Maybe, you're right. Seeing his mood, the assistant sat on the edge of the bed, her voice dropping to a whisper. Listen, I have something important to tell you. Lo, she asked intently, do you know what incantations are? Lo looked at her, confused. No. Never heard of them. Incantations are a high-level manipulation of prana, she explained. It's a secret art exclusive to specific races, coveted by even the strongest warriors. Lo's interest piqued. Is Loud one of them? She nodded. Yes, he hails from the Blower Ward tribe. They are legendary hunters who dominate the southern swamps, she continued, painting the picture of a savage, elite lineage. Their power is passed down orally through poems and songs. That is why they are called incantations magic, woven from voice. It's nearly impossible to learn without the genetic lineage, she warned. But here's the kicker. Loud suspects you possess the aptitude for it. Me? She asked if anything came to mind. Lo sat frozen, his eyes widening as the pieces of the puzzle clicked together. The memory of the girl in the sunlit kitchen. The forbidden humming. The melody that felt like power. He nodded slowly. Yes. The assistant beamed, her face lighting up with triumph. I knew it. This is a game-changer, Lo, she shouted, thrusting her phone in his face. With incantations, you can reach the elite rankings. And guess what? I've already found the perfect mission to test it. On the screen, a new directive flashed into existence. The investigation of Azabon Forest, a notorious danger zone, ranked 48th. Intrigued, he asked if this was merely an ecological survey. She nodded, but her expression darkened with a hidden warning. She revealed the grim truth. Adventurers were vanishing into thin air within those woods. Even high-ranking elites had stepped into the shadows, never to return. If he could uncover the source of the disappearances, he would leap 200 ranks in a single breath. High risk, but legendary reward. Lo didn't hesitate. I'll take it. He locked eyes with her, asking if she chose this specific mission because she believed in his true strength. A sincere smile touched her lips. Of course, buzzing with excitement, the assistant signaled that it was time to finalize the acceptance contract, but a warning followed. The forest protected rare beasts and forbade entry to sacred grounds. Even with authorization, he had to tread lightly. Curiosity piqued. He asked the obvious question. And if I break these rules? Her expression turned grave. Your ranking plummets instantly. She explained the harsh reality. Failure or collateral damage stains an adventurer's name. In this world, rank is the only currency of trust. The weight of her words settled in. He understood. With a quick tap on her phone, the mission was officially theirs. She cheered, eyes shining. This wasn't just a job. It was the genesis of Lo's legend, the first step to skyrocketing through the hierarchy. Still beaming, she clenched her fist in encouragement. Let's give it everything we've got, together. A rare, faint smile crossed his face. He nodded in silent agreement. Meanwhile, the Azaban forest loomed in the distance, a nightmare of purple trees and suffocating mist. Deep within, a shadow moved through the haze. His grip tightened around a victim's throat. Ice in his voice, he whispered. There is no unseeing what you have witnessed. Indifferent to the life fading in his hands, he scoffed. Another kill? The agency doesn't lose sleep over low-rank trash. He kicked a cage shut, locking away a horned white wolf. To him, the desperate struggle to climb the ranks honestly was nothing but a fool's errand. He scrutinized the captured beast, a cold calculation running through his mind. Selling the horn of this Horosero. That single transaction would catapult him straight into the triple-digit elite. The beast glared back with piercing yellow eyes. Suddenly, a mysterious voice cut through the air. Strength alone isn't enough to ascend, is it? Rosso Cruel, a rank 7 smuggler, stepped into the light. I exist for those crushed by the injustice of this world. Nearby, Dalson Iris turned his back to them, smirking. He would never surrender a hunting ground as rich as this. He threw his arms wide, drunk on ambition. I will reach the top 100. The rank 672 adventurer grinned with twisted determination. Miles away, Lo and his assistant arrived at the forest's fortified gate. Approaching the checkpoint, Lo handed over his credentials, signaling the guard to verify his status. The scanner beeped. Rank 2000. 728 confirmed. The gate opened. Walking through, Lo asked, how many active adventurers are there? Roughly 30,000, she replied. She turned to him, her tone serious. But understand this, the difficulty curve here is in a league of its own. She clarified the scale. A 4-digit ranker here possesses the power of a 3-digit elite in any other system. The competition here wasn't just numerous, it was lethal. The quality of warriors was suffocatingly high. She dropped the final truth. A 3-digit adventurer here would crush anyone you faced in the exams like an insect. The realization hit him. The bar had been raised. Seeing his focus deepen, the assistant paused before the threshold. With a theatrical gesture, she announced, let the real adventure begin. They stepped into the shadows of the 48th danger zone. Suddenly, Lo froze. What is it? She asked, sensing the shift. This is no ordinary forest, Lo murmured. The assistant smiled knowingly. So, you noticed the atmosphere already? A true expert, she explained, can taste the danger in the air just by glancing at the terrain. That is why the hazard ranking exists, to warn those too blind to see the death waiting for them. Her eyes darted to the side. Azaban was only added to the list 2 months ago, and the reason is simple. Before she could finish, the shadows erupted. A massive swarm of monsters surged from the brush. She dove behind him, trembling. Leave it to me, Lo commanded. Blade drawn, he charged into the chaotic horde. A screech tore through the air, a winged nightmare dove at him from the canopy. Flash! He pivoted, his sword intercepting the beast in midair. Without landing, he launched himself toward the insectoid swarm. One breath. One strike. The blade sang, and the remaining monsters fell in a spray of ichor. Stunned, his companion stammered. That move. Was it the one taught by the doll? Lo sheathed his blade. It was. He reveals that his martial foundation was forged by a training doll, admitting that most secrets remain locked away. However, he can feel it. He is inches away from mastering the second technique. Suddenly, the air grows heavy with bloodlust. A massive rank 126 orc materializes before them. The beast unleashes a deafening roar that shakes the forest floor. Facing this behemoth, the adventurer decides it is the perfect moment for a field test. He charges forward, channeling his aura into the new technique. The middle path. He screams the skill's name, Lotus Flower. With a burst of speed, he unleashes a devastating cross-slash, aiming straight for the monster's skull. The blade slams into the creature's chest with a dull thud. But as the energy dissipates, the orc stands firm, completely unfazed. He stares blankly at the result of his attack. Beside him, the assistant freezes, her hands raised in silent confusion. The orc charges. Abandoning all dignity, the young man scoops up his companion and sprints for their lives. He admits the technique was a total failure, trying to justify that at times should times have worked. The girl snaps back, reminding him that his only job is to keep her breathing. As they scramble through the brush, she screams. A warning, a cliff is approaching fast. He grabs her tighter, shouting over the wind, "We are jumping." Without hesitation, he launches them off the edge. The two plummet at breakneck speed toward the dark ravine below. Gravity takes hold, but he keeps her securely locked in his arms during the terrifying freefall. Thinking fast, he kicks off the branches of a giant tree to break their momentum. They crash land on the ground, leaving the assistant dazed and spinning. He heaves a sigh of relief, alive against the odds. His companion, however, immediately scolds him for the reckless, unplanned stunt. His tone turns sincere as he apologizes, explaining it is a reflex from Adal's brutal training. She pauses, asking just what kind of hellish training that was. He offers no answer, simply looking away. Walking into a new clearing, he scans the horizon, shifting his focus. The assistant's eyes light up. She points excitedly. Fate has smiled upon them. They have reached the target research zone. She explains the situation. The previous ecosystem survey was flawed. 20% of the data was missing and needed to be redone. And this is the place. The missing piece of the puzzle, located exactly where the major monster outbreak began. Just then, a majestic deer with massive antlers steps into view, drinking peacefully from a stream. Noticing his silence, the assistant calls out to him. He murmurs that everything here, the flora, the fauna, is alien to him. The young man gazes into the dense forest. It finally hits him. This is a true adventure. His mind drifts back to the past. He remembers Yuna's invitation, reflecting on the journey she desired so desperately. Snap back to reality. A rustle in the bushes sets their nerves on edge. He moves to intercept, but the assistant blocks him, signaling him to wait. A white magical beast emerges from the shadows, and her eyes widen in recognition. As the creature trots past them, the assistant gently reaches out a hand to halt its movement. Hand on his hilt, he asks if he should strike it down. She checks her device and immediately orders him to stand down. She identifies it as a royal horn. A rank 4 species, incredibly rare and teetering on the brink of extinction. Then she spots it a nasty wound on the animal's paw. She kneels instantly, her instincts shifting from observer to healer. He asks if she has the skills to help. She nods confidently, revealing she mastered basic medicine designed for rankers. She insists they set up camp immediately. As an appraiser, she cannot leave a creature in distress. Seeing her resolve, the young man simply nods in agreement. She justifies that saving the royal horn falls under the survey's mandate. He accepts this, acknowledging his role as her protector. Night falls over the forest. By the crackling bonfire, the assistant sleeps peacefully curled up beside the royal horn. But for the warrior, there is no rest. Deep in the woods, he trains alone under the moonlight. Grip tightening on his sword, he prepares the middle technique again. He unleashes the lotus strike against a massive tree trunk. The impact shakes the wood, energy radiating outward. But as the dust settles, he realizes it is still not enough. His efforts feel useless. Exhausted, he collapses onto the grass, sword falling to his side. Lying there, he stares up at the canopy, lost in thought. A bitter memory surfaces a duel with a superior warrior who wielded the Zen spear arts. He clenches his fist, admitting he was utterly powerless in that fight. Watching butterflies dance above him, a heavy realization settles in. In his current state, he cannot survive the Isle of Gods. He reaches a hand toward the sky, clutching at empty air. He must become stronger. With renewed resolve, he sits up, mind racing. A fragment of conversation returns to him. He remembers the assistant mentioning that Lord Loud spoke of possessing a specific art. He enters a meditative trance, pondering the concept of having his own art. Suddenly, his focus is shattered. He leaps to his feet, asking the assistant what is wrong. She points to the beast. It has suddenly become agitated. The royal horn growls low in its throat, dropping into an aggressive combat stance. He notes the animal looks physically better. The assistant nods, explaining that with the right treatment, its recovery speed is miraculous. But its behavior tells a darker story. She deduces the wound was caused by a human. The young man's eyes narrow. Was the attacker really human? The young woman gestures toward the beast, her voice serious. "Look closer," she urges, pointing to the majestic horn. She traces the jagged, chipped edges. This wasn't nature's doing. These are scars from a poacher's blade. The truth is grim. She explains that this creature possesses a legendary panacea, a miracle cure that led to them being hunted to the brink of extinction. Even with the ban, she continues, her eyes darkening, the underworld sells them as unicorn horns. Suddenly, the beast roars, charging straight for the defenseless assistant. In a flash of steel, the young man flickers between them. His sword meets the creature's charge with a resounding clang, blocking the lethal blow. The beast, sensing the overwhelming aura, turns and vanishes into the dense forest. But instead of thanks, the young woman cries out in protest. "You scared it away," she scolds. He stands there, stunned by the accusation, while she immediately decides they must chase the injured animal before it's too late. As she preps her gear, she clarifies the mission. Tracking it is part of the ecological survey. We didn't even know they still existed here. The swordsman doesn't hesitate. "I'll take point," he declares, stepping forward. Watching him go, she yells a warning. "Be careful. The forest is crawling with poachers." He halts mid-step. Slowly, he turns back, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "If I find one, what are the rules? Does killing them increase my rank?" he asks bluntly. The assistant pauses, then nods. "Depending on their strength. It's a distinct possibility." That's all he needed to hear. He digs his boot into the earth, the ground cracking under the pressure. Understood. Boom! He launches himself forward like a cannonball. "I'll take down every last one of them," he roars, disappearing into the trees at breakneck speed. The assistant blinks, and he's already gone. His speed is on an entirely different level. Deep in the forest, he tracks the faint mana trail left by the beast. Suddenly, his instincts scream. He twists his body to dodge an arrow aimed straight for his heart. He skids to a halt as the projectile slams into the earth where his head was just a second ago. A figure emerges from the shadows, oozing arrogance. "Tough luck, poacher," the stranger sneers, drawing his weapon. "I'm in a terrible mood today." Steel crashes against steel. Sparks fly as their blades lock in a violent struggle. "This energy," the attacker mutters, confused by the strange color of the swordsman's aura. Suddenly, the swordsman disengages. "Hold on," he shouts. That voice, it triggers a memory. He realizes exactly who is trying to kill him. Confusion washes over the attacker. He lowers his weapon, the killing intent fading as he stares at the young man. But the danger isn't over. The swordsman spots a sniper hidden in the canopy above. "Who is that?" he demands, pointing his blade. The archer drops from the tree, shouting, "Eddie!" The swordsman grins, sheathing his weapon. "Owl!" The misunderstanding instantly dissolves. The scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild. One day after the registration exam, the main hall is buzzing with new recruits waiting for their assignments. Darkus marches to the counter, ready to claim his first job. "Rank?" the receptionist asks, her quill hovering over the parchment. But before he can speak, a familiar figure intercepts him. Markman slides in, blocking his path with a cocky grin. The archer slams his hand on the counter. "I'm taking a quest first." The two rivals lock eyes, the air between them crackling with tension. They drift to the window, standing in awkward silence. Neither wants to admit defeat. Finally, Markman sighs, trying to break the ice. They bicker back and forth about seniority. Eventually, the archer throws his hands up in defeat. "Fine, have it your way." His expression turns serious. He brings up the elephant in the room, Lo, the swordsman who humiliated them both. "I still can't find any intel on him." Markman clenches his fist. "I'm a prodigy among archers," he mutters, his ego still bruised. "Everyone knows my name. To lose to an unranked nobody." He shakes his head. "It's a stain on my pride." Darkus says nothing, staring blankly into the distance. Darkus returns to his mercenary group. "Captain!" one of his men cheers. "Job well done. Did you register?" she asks eagerly. He nods, confirming his new status as an adventurer. The group erupts in celebration. "Finally, we can take on the real big-ticket quests now." One member laughs. "I bet you made the other rookies cry during the exam." Darkus looks away. "No," he mumbles. "That's not what happened." His team laughs harder. "Classic captain, holding back so you wouldn't kill them, right?" Bang! Darkus smashes his fist into the table, pulverizing the wood, instantly. The laughter dies in their throats. Darkus stands up, trembling with suppressed rage. He grits his teeth, the memory of that fight burning in his mind. He sees the swordsman's face, the indifference. Lo didn't even look him in the eye during their duel. The realization hits him like a physical blow. I wasn't an opponent to him, he thinks. I was just a pebble in his path. He turns to his terrified team, his eyes burning with determination. "Starting tomorrow," he commands, "training intensity triples." 3 times? A member gasps. "But Captain, we have quests to do." Darkus shakes his head. "It's not enough. The world is vast," he declares, his voice trembling with newfound resolve. "I've been arrogant. It's time I start training for real." He admits his pride has been shattered. Markman nods in agreement beside him. "We can't ignore the rankings anymore. We have to climb." The numbers tell the brutal truth. Darkus is ranked 6,725. Markman is 6,301. But Lo is already ranked 2,708. 4,000 ranks, Markman says, masking his fear with bravado. "That's nothing. We'll catch him." Darkus nods. They share a single unified goal: surpass the man who defeated them. Standing before the quest board, the archer pointed toward the Azaban forest. The captain nodded grimly, agreeing that high-risk zones were the fastest path to climbing the ranks. Upon their arrival at the tree line, a familiar silhouette blocked their path. The swordsman. Suddenly, a sharp noise from the dense woods snapped their attention to the shadows. Lo didn't waste a breath, shouting that explanations could wait. He sprinted past them, diving deeper into the labyrinth of trees. Markman trailed him like a shadow, revealing that a rare, injured royal horn had been spotted. The boy glanced over, asking if he truly intended to save the beast. The swordsman confirmed his intent without breaking stride. His eyes, however, were locked on the archer, analyzing his explosive speed. As they raced, he instructed the boy on mastering the terrain, using the uneven ground as a launch pad. Instantly, Markman absorbed the lesson and dashed ahead of the pack. A smirk touched the warrior's lips. The boy's adaptability was impressive. He shifted gears, accelerating until the forest became a blur around him. Markman shouted his name as the warrior closed the distance, but the boy's face was pale. He warned that the predator had already caught their prey. A colossus emerged from the gloom, blocking their path. The massive monster unleashed a storm of tentacles, forcing the duo to scatter or be crushed. Steel flashed in the dim light. The swordsman drew his blade, slicing through the approaching tentacles with surgical precision. He skidded to a halt, realizing close combat was a death sentence. His mind raced, considering a long-range devastation skill. But he hesitated. The blast would incinerate the royal horn too. Turning to Markman, he demanded an opening, though the boy looked bewildered at the request. Darkus took command, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Aim for the eyes, swordsman, keep moving." The archer didn't hesitate, loosing a volley of arrows as his ally charged. The shafts found their mark, blinding the beast, and drawing a deafening roar of pain. As the abomination thrashed in agony, Darkus materialized from the shadows. He sprinted toward the chaos, ordering a strike on the monster's legs. The swordsman obeyed instantly, planting his feet to ground his stance for the impact. A horizontal slash tore through the air. The blade connected, and the creature bellowed, its massive maw gaping open. "Grab the royal horn and move," Darkus shouted. The warrior didn't flinch, snatching the small creature from danger in a heartbeat. Darkus charged forward, slamming his fist into a massive tree trunk. The impact sent tremors through the ground, toppling the timber directly onto the monster. Dust settled as the enemy was crushed beneath the weight. The swordsman stood silent, cradling the rescued beast while surveying the destruction. Markman whistled, praising Darkus's tactical genius. Darkus shrugged, claiming he was used to ordering subordinates, a comment that visibly annoyed the boy. From a distance, the swordsman observed them, his mind drifting to the past. He recalled the conversation about the top 10 ranks, how his blade alone had carried him this far. But staring at the fallen behemoth, a heavy realization settled in. Swordsmanship alone was no longer enough. He watched Markman, his mind churning with strategies to ascend the adventurer rankings. Tightening his grip on the royal horn, he made a vow. He needed to master skills that transcended the blade. Suddenly, the assistant rushed onto the scene, bowing in apology to the swordsman. She paused, looking between the two young men and the fallen log, confused by the aftermath. He explained the situation, admitting he initially mistook them for poachers, but the misunderstanding had been swiftly resolved. The young woman nodded, relieved. She praised his restraint, noting that avoiding reckless violence was the mark of a true professional. Yet, a playful glint entered her eyes as she looked at the duo. She mused aloud about lowering their ranking for causing such confusion. "Just kidding," she laughed, though she warned she might do it next time. The two adventurers quickly agreed to tread more carefully. Later, Darkus leaned in, whispering to the swordsman. He questioned why a warrior would travel with a leash, an evaluator constantly hovering. The swordsman replied plainly. It was the most efficient way to climb the ranks, even if it meant living under constant surveillance. Markman scoffed, warning that he'd be stuck with rigid jobs and endless travel. The girl denied it, but the archer pressed on, accusing her of using him for her own career. "Do you know why evaluators seek exclusive rankers?" he asked, his voice low. "It is the only way for them to ascend," he continued, exposing the system. Evaluators only got promoted when they updated rankings. The warriors were merely tools for their corporate climb. The young woman walked ahead in silence, offering no defense. To the archer, her silence was an admission of guilt. She was using her partner as a stepping stone. He muttered the word progress under his breath with disdain. But the swordsman remembered something else. He recalled the fire in the evaluator's eyes when she said this was something she had to do. Was he really being used? He glanced at her back and shook his head. No, she didn't have the soul of a manipulator. A moment later, the girl scanned the perimeter, announcing that the area was finally secure. Suddenly, the royal horn nuzzled against her leg. The swordsman chuckled, noting they had become fast friends, but she sighed, complaining about the creature's lack of personal space. Darkus sneered, calling the animal an ungrateful wolf. She shot back instantly. claiming the beast's attitude was purely a reaction to the guy's terrifying face. He tried to defend himself, but she cut him off, blaming his scary aura before walking away with the creature. He stood there, repeating her words. While the evaluator noticed a shadow cross his face, she crouched beside the defeated monster, finally identifying the threat. It's a forest fisher. She reveals a chilling truth. This monstrosity belongs to the frozen wastelands, making its presence here an absolute anomaly. A shiver runs down her spine as she realizes this species has never been recorded within the borders of the Azavan forest. Without wasting a second, she commands her partner to log the creature's existence, and he nods in compliance. Turning to the trio, she demands to know the purpose of their presence in this danger zone. Darkus steps forward, claiming they are on a parallel assignment directly commissioned by the evaluation office. The assistant narrows her eyes, sensing something off about his statement. Why would mercenaries and archers be deployed to the Azavan forest? Suddenly, the pieces click into place regarding the dynamic of the three men. It was the swordsman. His influence had dragged these seasoned warriors into taking a ranking mission far above their usual pay grade. Stroking the fur of the royal horn, she contemplates the crucial lesson the young fighter still needs to learn. Moments later, she approaches the swordsman with a device humming in her hand. Good news, she announces. His sword technique has been officially verified, triggering a massive update in the speed rankings. The holographic display flickers, revealing his rank has skyrocketed from 58th all the way to 26th. She asks if the result satisfies him. The young man nods, confirming his approval, though a trace of hesitation lingers in his eyes. A knowing smile plays on her lips. She explains that her instincts as a member of the evaluation office allowed her to see the true potential of his strike. He stares at her, genuinely impressed. What do you mean? He asks, before adding, are you always this incredible? The young woman strikes a confident pose, basking in the praise. She fires back a playful jab, asking if he is only just now realizing her brilliance. In the distance, the other two approach, eager to see the stats. She asks if he wants to reveal his score, and he gives the go-ahead. The moment the device lights up, Markman groans in disbelief, complaining that the swordsman has climbed the charts in every single category. The mood shifts. Darkus turns to the young prodigy, his expression hardening. There is something vital you need to understand. The boy admits his weakness. Outside of the sword, he is a novice. The mercenary captain nods, confirming that while his blade is sharp, his tactical mind is untrained. He reminds the boy of the earlier battle, how the archer covered his blind spots, and how command instincts saved them. Darkus begins his lecture. As a leader of a mercenary troop, plotting strategies to shield one's subordinates is not a choice, it is a duty. He breaks down the art of war. Formations, precise instructions, and positioning during an assault are the pillars of survival. Yet, Darkus pauses, skepticism in his voice. Does a monster with such a flawless technique even care for advice from a mere mercenary? The boy's answer is instant and firm. I do. Teach me everything. Stunned by his humility, the two veterans exchange a silent, respectful glance. Darkus grins and begins the training. To traverse a forest is to become part of it. One must utilize every sense to survive the trek. Watching the boy absorb every word, the evaluator smiles warmly. He is evolving before her eyes, and she is glad to be part of his journey. But her smile fades as she scans the tree line. The Azavan forest is a chaotic web of unknown variables. A cold dread settles in her stomach. This mission might be far more dangerous than any of them anticipated. Unbeknownst to them, a dark portal swirls in the shadows. A mysterious figure observes them. Two men step into the light, one sneering that he found the targets while hunting the missing beast. The older man licks his lips, eyes gleaming with greed. Their organs are fresh. They will fetch a high price on the black market. The muscular thug cracks his knuckles. They may not be the beast they were hunting, but they are prey nonetheless. He prepares to capture them. His voice drops to a menacing growl. Anyone foolish enough to enter a beast's territory should expect to be devoured. Back in the clearing, Markman explains that mastering the five senses is no simple feat. He adds that applying this sensory awareness in the heat of combat requires immense training. The swordsman listens intently as the archer claims this forest, with its overwhelming aura, is the perfect dojo. While Darkus looks confused, the archer reveals his secret technique. He can pinpoint the exact number of living creatures in their vicinity. It is Prana, he whispers. He explains he is using a low level of this spiritual energy to scan the environment. He describes Prana as a raw talent and instructs the group to expand their consciousness, pushing their perception beyond physical limits. Following the guidance, the swordsman closes his eyes. He reaches deep within, gathering the dormant energy swirling around his core. Suddenly, a massive surge of power manifests. The sheer density of the energy shocks his two companions. Both veterans recoil at the intensity. Yet, the young man remains perfectly still, focusing solely on sharpening his five senses to a razor's edge. Shrouded in a blazing aura, He steps forward. The energy ripples out like a tidal wave, engulfing the entire forest in his sensory net. As the pulse expands, his mind's eye snaps open. High atop a cliff, a lone figure stands watching. The enemy is revealed. In a heartbeat, he vanishes, lunging forward with his sword drawn while the assessor watches in shock. She cries out to him, but he spins around, roaring a warning that they are being watched. He senses the ambush just as a fist wreathed in energy flies toward him. A beam of pure destruction tears through the clearing, triggering a catastrophic explosion on impact. "No!" his companions scream, as the blast wave hits. In seconds, the forest path is swallowed by a choking cloud of dust and debris. The swordsman lies prone, engulfed in a suffocating cloud of dust and debris from the devastating strike. From the haze, a figure emerges. He sneers, revealing he hunted them down like prey by tracing the faint ripples of their prana. Darkus and the archer instantly shift into combat stances. "Who are you?" Darkus demands, the looming terror of this new adversary reflecting clearly in the assessor's trembling eyes. The stranger turns his cold gaze upon them, but the assessor screams for them to stand down. Her voice shakes as she identifies the monster. "Dalson Iris, the adventurer ranked number 672. A heavy silence falls. They instantly grasp the gap in power. This man exists in a league far above their own capabilities. Dalson smirks, enjoying the fear. "You know me," she whispers, recounting his fame. "You were a legend, a warrior on the verge of breaking into the double-digit elites. But you threw it all away," she continues. "You committed a grave crime, and the guild stripped you of your glory, plummeting your rank into the hundreds." Just as the tension peaks, a shadow shifts. Another presence materializes from the darkness behind Dalson. A blond man stumbles in, gasping for air. "You move too fast," he wheezes, but Dalson merely scoffs at his partner's weakness. "No, you are just pathetic and slow." The newcomer spots the assistant. "A civilian?" he muses, amused. But the girl freezes, her blood running cold. "Russo Cruel," she breathes, and the man's grin widens at the sound of his own name. She exposes his true nature. The infamous black market dealer. Number 76 on the criminal listings. "Ooh, sharp," Russo chuckles, clapping his hands. He relishes the notoriety of the crime rankings, a brutal list that measures a villain's threat level based on the atrocity of their sins. Though created by the underground community, this dark leaderboard is so accurate that even official authorities use it to hunt down targets. Dalson loses interest in the chatter. His eyes dart to the side, narrowing. "The unicorn," he mutters. "There it is." He locks eyes with the mythical beast trembling behind a tree. "Found you," he growls, hunger for the capture burning in his gaze. The assistant throws herself between the monster and the creature. "Why?" she demands, trembling but defiant. "Why does a warrior like you associate with filth like him?" Dalson shrugs, his face devoid of shame. "Money," he answers flatly. "It is always about the gold." "You have godlike skills," she cries out. "You could earn a fortune honestly. Why stoop this low?" "You misunderstand," Dalson interrupts, his voice chilling. "Gold is not the only goal. I need Russo for two things: to sell my spoils and to buy what he offers." "Buy?" The word hangs in the air. Dalson sneers. "In this world, even status has a price tag. If you want a higher rank badly enough, you simply purchase it." The revelation strikes her like a physical blow. The integrity of the system she believes in crumbles before her eyes. "You dare mock the rankings?" she screams. Seizing the distraction, Darkus materializes behind Dalson, his blade pressing cold steel against the villain's jugular. It should be a killing stroke. Yet, without even turning, Dalson catches the blade between two fingers, halting the lethal strike as if it were a child's toy. "Do not move," the marksman draws his bowstring taut. "We patrol the Azavan forest, and we cannot let a monster like you roam free." Dalson barely acknowledges the threat. A terrifying aura explodes from his body, shaking the ground. "Fine," he sighs. "I will handle this the messy way." With a surge of prana, he twists his fingers. Metal shrieks, and Darkus's sword shatters into 1,000 useless fragments. Dalson does not hesitate. Shrouded in lethal energy, he launches a fist aimed straight for Darkus's heart. The swordsman freezes, paralyzed by the sheer killing intent. Death is certain. He closes his eyes. Suddenly, a streak of emerald lightning tears through the forest, rushing toward the fray. Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. Low crashes into the scene, catching Dalson's fist mid-air. The collision of their opposing auras sends a shockwave rippling through the clearing. Dalson's eyes widen in shock. He glares at the boy who stopped his unstoppable blow. "Who the hell are you?" he roars. "I should be asking you that," Low retorts with a grin. Their energies flare, detonating in a massive explosion that forces everyone back. "Low, you're alive!" the assistant cries out in relief, but the young hero does not smile. "Stay back," he warns. "This guy. He is not just some random thug. As the dust settles, the girl studies the imposing silhouette of their enemy. Could this man be the legendary hunter they heard rumors about? The image in her mind matches perfectly. It is him. Wasting no time, Lo dashes forward. His blade gleams as he initiates a lightning-fast offensive. Lo channels his power, unleashing a devastating blast of prana directly at Dalsin. The impact is direct, kicking up a massive plume of smoke and debris. But as the smoke clears, Dalsin stands unscathed, having blocked the blast with ease. Interesting, he sneers. How does a mere brat wield the power of prana? Lo grits his teeth. His attack did nothing. His mind flashes back to the mountains, to the grave, warning his master once gave him about this very power. Listen well, the master's voice echoes. You are an anomaly. Normally, one cannot simply learn prana. It is a reward granted only to those who have mastered a discipline to its absolute limit. It is the hidden potential of the soul, the master explained. A dormant force that awakens only when a warrior delves into the deepest abyss of a single purpose. Therefore, the memory continues. If you meet an enemy who knows what prana is, do not underestimate them. That knowledge alone proves their lethality. The image of a lone climber conquering a peak fills his mind. His opponent is not just strong, he is a grandmaster of his craft. Reality snaps back. Lo tightens his grip on his sword, sweat trickling down his brow. He is facing a true monster. Lo, watch out, the assistant screams, reading the data frantically. He is a legend in the ring, ranked 12th among all professional boxers. The words ring in Lo's ears. Asterisk. 12th in the world. Asterisk. That explains the indestructible fists. That explains the terrifying speed, but the nightmare is not over. The girl's face goes pale as she scrolls further. It's not just boxing, she stammers in horror. He is also ranked 7th. In global weightlifting, the assistant's analysis confirmed their worst fears. Dalin's power was world-class, a caliber of strength that spelled instant death if they got too close. The brute scoffed, visibly irritated by the nuisance of a certifier exposing his hidden stats to the enemy. His killing intent locked onto the girl. He would crush the weakest link first. Channeling his massive aura into a nearby tree, he ignored the assistant watching from the shadows. The ground quaked as Dalin tore the colossal trunk from the earth with his bare hands, roots snapping like brittle twigs. Die! He roared, hurling the massive timber like a javelin. The tree screamed through the air, closing in on the assistant with lethal speed. In a flash of steel, Lo materialized before her, his blade cleaving the trunk in two. Without missing a beat, he fired a concentrated beam of energy straight at the monster. The young woman cried out his name, panic gripping her heart as she rushed toward the dust cloud. But amidst the debris, Lo stood unbroken, his energy blazing around him like a shield. Suddenly, a new presence emerged. Rosso Cruel arrived, eyes widening in genuine surprise. What strange prana, Rosso murmured, intrigued by the boy's power. He ordered Dalin to capture the target alive, promising a handsome payout for such a rare specimen. The brute grinned, confirming the deal. He would capture the boy, assuming the kid could survive the beating that was about to follow. Don't forget about us, Markman shouted from the canopy. In a blur of motion, the archer unleashed 3 arrows aimed straight at Dalin's vitals. But the monster didn't even flinch. Blocking the projectiles with a mere flare of energy, Dalin turned his terrifying gaze toward the archer. You insects, he growled, his aura darkening the air. Do you truly think you're worthy of my memory? Just then, Darkus emerged from the blind spot, hurling a device toward the enemy. Push it now, Lo screamed, while Dalin bellowed. Don't toy with me. I'll kill you all, Dalin roared, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion of power to incinerate the trap. The energy wave annihilated everything in its path, pulverizing the forest floor. But as the dust settled, Dalin blinked, confused by the silence. The path was empty. He cursed into the void, realizing the rats had managed to slip through his fingers. Rosso Cruel stepped forward, his voice cold. He chided Dalin for his recklessness, asking what profit they would have made if the merchandise had been destroyed. Miles away, the group sprinted through the dense forest, Darkus carrying the assistant and Lo hauling the royal horn wolf on his back. Good call on the retreat, Markman panted, praising Lo's judgment. They all knew staying there meant certain death. The swordsman remained silent, his breath steady as he kept pace, the heavy animal resting on his shoulder. His mind, however, was in turmoil. He had finally witnessed the overwhelming gap, the true horror of a rank 600 fighter. Unconsciously, his grip tightened, causing the wolf to yelp in pain. Lo released the creature immediately, apologizing as the beast backed away, growling at his intensity. They finally came to a halt. Darkus scanned the perimeter, asking if they had put enough distance between them and the monster. The assistant called out to Lo, but the young warrior's expression was grim. There is still one thing left to do, he muttered. The girl's eyes darkened with determination. She implored him to capture Rosso Cruel. Lo repeated the name slowly, testing the weight of it. The bearded man? Lo asked. The assistant nodded, her face set in stone. Lo pressed for a reason. Why him? Her answer was sharp and immediate. It was a matter of personal vengeance. Darkus cut in before the tension could escalate. Let's figure out our survival plan first, he suggested. The girl sighed, conceding to his logic. She bowed her head, apologizing to the group. The emotions had clouded her judgment for a moment. Their ally took charge, explaining the new objective. Their mission was forest patrol. They would switch to surveillance and monitor the two targets from the shadows. We can't win in a head-on clash, the agent admitted. Darkus agreed instantly. Observation was their only viable play. The girl outlined the endgame, gathering evidence to expose their crimes to the agency. Markman raised a brow, asking what was in it for them. She sighed at his greed, calling him unbelievable. We have high stealth scores, she noted, and this forest is a graveyard for the careless. If we pull this off, she revealed, we could climb 1,000 spots in the rankings. Markman's eyes lit up. That was all the motivation he needed. The agent warned them strictly. No recklessness. Darkus nodded. Solemn confirmation combat was absolutely off the table. She turned to the swordsman. What about you, Lo? He glanced at the wolf. We need to get the royal horn to sanctuary. Darkus nodded. Fighting while protecting a beast was suicide. The assistant added that the risk of an ambush was too high with the animal in tow. That's not the only reason, Lo said, his voice quiet but firm. He looked into the beast's eyes. I just don't want to drag the royal horn into this mess anymore. The assistant softened, realizing the creature must have been terrified by the overwhelming killing intent they had just faced. We split up, Darkus decided. Lo proposed a rendezvous point. The great tree, once the creature was safe. Why there? Someone asked. Back up, Lo replied. If things go south, we'll need to be able to support each other. Before parting ways, Markman offered a quick lesson on forest traversal. Lo thanked the archer, absorbing the knowledge instantly. Darkus warned that Dallin might slip away if they took too long, but the archer smirked. Don't worry, I can track anyone, anywhere. Markman stepped forward to drill the fundamentals into Luo, while his companion observed in silence. The young man hungered for strategic knowledge, prompting Darkus to finally agree to share a fraction of his wisdom. The duo moved as one, a seamless display of lethal combat techniques and fluid movement, demonstrated specifically for the rookie's eyes. By the time the lesson ended, Luo's mind was reeling. It was an avalanche of information, almost too much to process in a single sitting, but he refused to stop. With his own sword shattered, Luo asked to borrow Darkus's blade. Without hesitation, the veteran handed over his hunting dagger. Before leaving, their ally left him with a crucial piece of advice. To survive what was coming, he needed to master image training and visualize his victory. Meanwhile, the assistant made a tactical decision. They needed to move the royal horn to a sanctuary. Luo agreed. Even with the threat of Dalsin looming over them, the mission had to come first. Her eyes narrowed, piercing through him. She demanded to know if he truly grasped the weight of her words. He nodded, his resolve distinct. Still skeptical, she pressed him again. Was he absolutely certain? The young man didn't flinch, reaffirming his choice with ironclad conviction. Luo explained his reasoning simple and clear. He believed in the duo's capabilities. The assistant finally conceded, admitting that those two were indeed worthy of trust. Suddenly, she raised a finger, a new plan forming in her mind. Why not kill two birds with one stone? They could search for the royal horn's original habitat while conducting their ecological survey. She theorized that others of its kind might still be there. If the area was secure, they could release the creature back into the wild where it belonged. Luo frowned, asking the obvious question. How would they locate a hidden habitat? The assistant's reply was blunt. They just had to ask the beast itself. She turned to the creature, speaking to it as an equal, asking directly where its heart desired to go. The wolf reacted instantly, darting forward like a streak of lightning. The girl nodded. That was the path. When Luo hesitated, questioning the safety of following a beast, she insisted they trust its primal instincts. The young woman's gaze softened. It was only a scared cub, after all. It was only natural for it to yearn for the safety of home. Hearing her logic, the young man couldn't argue. It made perfect sense. But peace was short-lived. A sharp cry rang out as she spotted an unidentified entity lurking in the trees. Luke immediately barked an order to her companion to document the specimen. He confirmed the directive with military precision. Moments later, Luo presented a crude sketch of the beast, asking if this scribbling was sufficient for her records. Luke ignored the quality, pointing to yet another creature. She ordered him to take it down, scolding him sharply for wasting breath on unnecessary replies. As twilight deepened into night, the work continued relentlessly until they finally set up camp. With Luke and the royal horn fast asleep, Luo slipped away from the warmth of the fire, venturing into the darkness of the forest. Alone in the silence, he centered himself, taking a deep breath to calm his racing heart before beginning his training. Energy surged, manifesting around his body in a visible aura. Just as he powered down, footsteps approached. It was Luke, stepping out of the shadows. She asked if she had disturbed his solitude. He shook his head, explaining he was merely reviewing the techniques Eddie had drilled into him. Luke nodded, revealing she hadn't been sleeping either. She had been awake the whole time, scrutinizing the report he wrote earlier. She didn't mince words. His artistic skills were terrible, but for now, she would give him a passing grade. Seizing the moment, Luo called her by name, shifting the topic to their ultimate target, capturing Rosso. He asked if this mission was the absolute path she had chosen, no matter the cost. Clutching her notebook, Luke's voice was quiet but firm. It was. His response was immediate. Then he would help her. The offer hung in the air, leaving her completely stunned. The young man looked up at the stars. He confessed that late at night, the pressure felt suffocating, as if everything he held back was about to detonate. He claimed to understand her burden. Luke scoffed, disbelief written on her face. How could someone who acted so carefree possibly understand the weight she carried? Her words silenced him for a heartbeat. Then, Luke connected the dots. Was this the demon driving him to train until exhaustion every single night? He simply nodded. A heavy silence descended. The girl just stared at him, the flickering campfire casting long shadows across their faces. She thanked him, but her voice was edged with bitterness. He didn't even know her real objective. She paused, making a decision. It was time to reveal the truth. With a steel gaze, she prepared to bare her soul. She explained the current ranking system, a glittering list of the elite, where warriors competed for glory, honor, and value. But she posed a chilling question. What if an opposite list existed? A shadow ledger that recorded humanity from the bottom up. Her expression turned grim. She defined it as the worst ranking, a list of the damned. Luke revealed that she was hunting this dark underbelly of the world. As she spoke, the story drifted back 5 years into the past, to a time when Luke had a cherished companion. Her name was Miela, a girl who walked with a cane. Born into eternal darkness, Miela never mocked Luke's ambitions. Sitting on a park bench, she would praise Luke, calling her amazing for daring to become a certifier. Luke had shared her wildest dream, to seize the #1 rank and carve her name into history. But it was a lonely road. Other children mocked her. Miela was the only one who offered a shoulder to lean on, while others offered condescending smiles, suggesting Luke was too big for their small school. Miela changed the subject. Her father had received an exclusive invitation for a family cruise. Miela struggled to recall the vessel's name, but Luke knew it instantly. She shouted it out. The Bondrusian. It was a legendary luxury liner. Miela admitted she was clueless about the details, as the ticket had come from a distant relative. Then, the unthinkable happened. Miela offered the ticket to Luke. Shocked, Luke demanded to know why. With her eyes closed, the blind girl smiled softly. Since she couldn't see the world, the trip was wasted on her. In a flash, Luke sprang to her feet. She shouted her refusal, unable to accept such a sacrifice. She refused to leave her side, insisting that if she went, Miela had to come too. With unwavering resolve, she gripped her friend's hand tight. A vow was made to never let go, no matter what. Miela beamed, thanking her with a promise to ask her father, and Luke's face lit up with pure joy. Thanks to a mother's sacrifice, the ticket was secured. Finally, Luke stepped aboard the legendary Bondrusian. Miela was her sanctuary in a world that mocked her big dreams. But fate is cruel. 2 days later, a nightmare became reality. Engine failure sent the Colossus crashing aground amidst the chaos. The vessel immediately began its descent into the abyss. A despairing report came from the cabin. Half the lifeboats were useless, and it would take 3 trips to evacuate everyone. Panic rose as the order bellowed out. Every passenger was summoned to the deck immediately. The captain took command, declaring he alone would decide who lived and who died. The officer nodded, sealing their fates. Glancing at the documents in his hand, he realized there was only one way. He had to use that times list. Fear gripped the crowd as they awaited judgment on the deck. The officer stepped forward, barking out names for the first lifeboat. Board now. Luke squeezed Miela's hand, whispering words of comfort. She swore she was right there, that they would face this together. Suddenly, Miela's father's voice cut through the noise. He wasn't calling his daughter. He was screaming, "Luke Aldi!" The officer ignored the confusion, continuing his cold roll call. "Lucas Nixon! Oliver Crow!" Silence fell as the list ended. That was it. Luke froze, terror rising. Why was only her name called? Miela went quiet, her grip slipping away. With a heartbreaking smile, she insisted she was fine. "You go first, Luke." "No!" Luke screamed. There was no time for self-sacrifice. They had to stick together to survive this hell. "You are going to be a great certifier, Luke. Believe in yourself like I do." Tears streamed down Miela's face as she clenched her fists. The first boat reached safety and immediately turned back. racing against death to save the others. But when it arrived, Miela was nowhere to be seen. The third rescue attempt pierced the darkness, but time had run out. The Bondrusian was gone, consumed entirely by an inferno of raging fire. Reality shattered. Luke collapsed onto the sand, gasping for air. No, this cannot be happening. Nearby, an officer scoffed that they were lucky to get spots. The other agreed, sneering that it paid to live diligently. Those with the worst ranking always get left behind. Hearing this, Luke froze. She approached them, eyes hollow. What did you say? What is the worst ranking? Her voice trembled. The officer jumped, realizing she had heard their twisted secret. Their panic betrayed them. She clenched her fist, nails digging into her palm. This was something forbidden. Tell me, Luke hissed, her aura turning dark. Or I scream, worst ranking, until everyone on this beach knows what you did. Cornered. The officer crumbled. Fine. But not a word to the captain. Luke glared at him, waiting for the truth that would change her life. Back in the present, the campfire crackles. Luke stares into the flames, ready to unveil the horror of the worst ranking. It is a list, she explains coldly, identifying humans deemed to have the lowest abilities. The expendables. Can you guess what it is for? Lo's eyes narrow as the realization hits him. It is to decide who gets thrown away when things go wrong. A heavy silence follows. Exactly, Luke nods. The elites use it to calculate the value of a life, to prioritize their own survival. Luke's eyes burn with determination. My goal is absolute. I will destroy the worst ranking that murdered Miela and breeds despair. Lo sits motionless, absorbing the weight of her tragic crusade. I understand the ranking now, he says slowly. But how does Rozo fit into this puzzle? A dangerous glint appears in Luke's eye. Simple. To catch a monster, you must use a monster. Rozo's ranking is off the books. Capturing him is the key to the mastermind. But first, I need to deal with Dalsin. Do you know who pulls the strings? Lo asks. No, she admits, but it reeks of a massive organization. Perhaps an underworld certification agency, she muses. It is just a hunch, but my instincts rarely lie. The only sound is the popping of the fire, the darkness pressing in around them. Lo breaks the quiet, his voice soft. It must have been hell for you, carrying that burden alone, all this time. He looks her in the eye. It was painful, yet you never surrendered. That is why I respect you, Luke. His words pierce her armor. Her voice cracks, trembling. Stop it. If you keep talking like that, I am going to cry. They sit in the glow of the embers, a shared understanding passing between them without words. As Lo watches the dancing flames, Luke wipes her eyes. Now tell me your story, she demands gently. It is not fair if I am the only one weeping. He nods, a faint smile playing on his lips. I will tell you, but do not expect tears from me. She teased that she would be the one to comfort him in her arms. But come morning, it was Luke who crumbled, weeping uncontrollably. Lo gently asked if the tears had finally stopped. Luke shook her head, confessing that now that she understood the weight of his suffering, she couldn't hold back her sorrow. Through her sobs, she admitted the truth. She finally understood his desperate rush to reach the Isle of Gods, his burning need to ensure everyone was safe. Lo smiled softly, reminding her that she was the very person who taught him that impatience leads nowhere. As she composed herself, Luke asked him to correct her if she ever fell short again. Puzzled, he asked what she meant by such a request. With a steady gaze, the young man extended his hand. He invited her to become his exclusive certifier this time, making their partnership official. Wiping away her tears, she adjusted her hat and accepted his proposal. Luke took his hand firmly. She swore a solemn oath that she would never give him a reason to regret this decision. Stunned by the weight of her promise, he stared at her in silence. They shook hands, sealing the pact of destiny between them. Resuming their journey, Luke noted they had covered significant ground. Their eyes fell upon the small animal with them, and Lo whispered a hope that the little creature could find its way home. Curious, Lo asked what kind of terrain the royal horns usually inhabited. Luke explained that these majestic beasts typically made their homes in caves. She elaborated that their immense life force allowed them to dwell peacefully in such secluded places, rarely needing to hunt for survival. Suddenly, the royal horn let out a sharp bark. It bolted down the trail with blinding speed. They sprinted after it, Lo shouting that their destination must be close. He urged Luke not to lose track of the beast, confirming he still had eyes on it. The creature tore ahead, leading them deeper into the wilderness. Finally, the path ended at a colossal rock formation, leaving Luke wondering what they had found. She scanned the object, questioning if it was merely a massive boulder, but her instincts screamed otherwise. There was something unnatural here. Realization struck like lightning. She identified the corpse as a muse mimic, unable to fathom that such an incredibly rare magical beast lay before them. Lo noted the creature was already dead. Luke nodded, but confusion clouded his expression. If this beast was dead, the mystery was far from solved. She asked if he understood the nature of a mimic. It was a predator that lured greedy humans to their doom using treasure as bait. But she revealed a darker truth. The Muse mimic was unique. Instead of gold, it used other magical beasts as lures to trap unwary hunters. Luke described it as a walking museum of death, a creature that had traversed the lands collecting rare beasts like trophies. The young man asked if the royal horn had been one of its captives. Luke confirmed it. With a grim nod, the little one had been trapped inside. She analyzed the scene, explaining that the mimic attacked by releasing its menagerie all at once, but this time it had been counterattacked. Lo immediately deduced the killer. Dalin. Luke pieced it together. The investigation was over. The death of this apex predator was the catalyst that shattered the ecosystem's balance. Faced with the grim reality, the young man could only mutter about the horrifying nature of the situation. He pointed to the wounds, asking if a hunter dealt the final blow. Luke shook her head. These injuries were inflicted by another monster after the mimic was already dead. She explained the terrifying implication of the mimic's nature. Because the mimic formed a soul bond with its captive beasts, the true culprit was likely a creature that had been lurking in this very forest. The royal horn approached the massive carcass and bowed its head in mourning. Lo watched with heavy eyes, realizing the animal had lost its home a second time. He whispered that he knew the feeling all too well. It was the crushing weight of a broken heart. Hearing his pain, the young woman called his name, worry etched on her face. But suddenly, a massive red nightmare rose from behind the corpse. Luke screamed, a warning. It was the monster from before. In a heartbeat, the beast launched itself into a ferocious leap straight at them. Lo reacted on instinct, shoving her out of harm's way as the impact shook the ground. The creature ignored them, tearing into the mimic's carcass with ravenous hunger. It ripped apart the rock-like flesh, devouring it in massive chunks. Luke shouted the horrifying truth. This monster was the scavenger that had eaten the mimic. Enraged, the royal horn charged forward, sinking its teeth into the red monster's leg. Luke shrieked as the monster thrashed, slamming the small animal against the carcass. With a brutal strike, it sent the royal horn flying through the air. Though battered and broken, the brave animal struggled to stand, ready to fight until the end. Lo stepped forward, his voice commanding as he ordered his four-legged companion to stay back. Aura flared around him. He declared that he would be the one to bring this beast down, walking calmly toward death. A memory surfaced Master Markman, questioning him about a technique he had failed to master. The old master watched him with a hawk's gaze, analyzing his flaws. He admitted his swordsmanship was lacking, but asked if the technique relied on prana. Lo confirmed the bitter truth. He couldn't control his own energy. Markman smiled, a gleam of wisdom in his eyes. If control was the issue, the solution was deceptively simple. The master offered to teach him the secret family art of prana control, guaranteeing the young apprentice would master it in no time. Back in the present, Lo closed his eyes. He channeled the teachings, his energy swelling until his eyes glowed with an intense, otherworldly light. Lo recalled the question about the prana method. Luke's voice echoed in his mind, explaining the next crucial step. He had to turn his senses inward. He needed to visualize his own internal universe, looking down upon himself from a higher plane of existence. The boy's voice urged him to try, promising a sight beyond imagination. For someone like Lo, overflowing with boundless prana, this method would unleash devastating power. His senses sharpened to a razor's edge. Luo turned his gaze inward, focusing on the abyss within. A massive surge of energy manifested, swirling violently around him. He recognized this chaotic force as his own essence, but the flow of prana was a disaster, a turbulent storm without direction. In that moment of clarity, he knew exactly what had to be done. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the forest. A monstrous beast burst through the trees, its roar drowning out the terrified screams of his friends calling his name. The creature lunged, a gigantic claw descending to crush them. But the young swordsman stood firm. With his grip tightening on the hilt, he prepared to walk the middle path. With a seamless transformation of stance, he unleashed a strike faster than the eye could follow. The young observer watched in awe, wondering if the second technique had truly found its mark. The green-haired youth shouted a desperate warning. A single blow would not be enough to fell such a beast. Without a fraction of hesitation, the swordsman exploded into motion. He unleashed a torrent of cuts against the opponent. Only his unique transformation style could generate such a devastating barrage of simultaneous attacks. The sequence of steel biting flesh seemed endless. Finally, with a thunderous impact, the last blow landed, bringing the creature to a halt. As the dust of battle settled, the monster's true form was revealed, a horned wolf, the legendary royal horn. The swordsman approached slowly, his aura calming, asking the beast to set aside its fear. He knelt before the majestic creature, assuring it he was no enemy. In a silent pact of trust, the royal horn licked his hand. He made his choice. He would accompany the wolf. The forest had morphed into a death trap, and worry for Owl gnawed at him. Elsewhere, a man discovered Kim collapsed on the ground and screamed his name in horror. Deep in the shadows, Dalkin ordered a captured creature to freeze, complaining with a sadistic sneer that he couldn't carve it up properly if it moved. He casually asked his partner if he could break the merchandise a little. But the man in the suit warned him coldly damaged goods meant the price would plummet. The braided mercenary scoffed, asking why it mattered if they were going to turn it all to dust anyway. He was told to shut up. Buyers would suspect a fake product if it looked too ragged. Hidden in the brush, Owl watched with burning contempt. Just looking at those two monsters made him physically sick. His partner could only nod in grim agreement. Eddie admitted the hard truth: these were not opponents they could defeat. His partner confirmed the mission parameters. They only needed to report back to survive. Adam warned via comms that almost all the merchandise had been collected. His partner announced the deadline had arrived, it was time to move. Suddenly, Dalkin whipped around, his killing intent spiking. He declared he would deal with the rats spying on them. The hidden duo froze, realizing their cover was blown. Dalkin launched himself at them like a cannonball, unleashing a ferocious attack. The youths were sent flying, hitting the ground hard from the devastating impact. Owl gasped, asking how they were discovered. The enemy merely smirked, claiming he had smelled them from the very start. He explained the terrified logic of the predator. While hunting magical beasts, his senses picked up every living thing in the area. Eddie was paralyzed with shock. A three-digit adventurer wasn't just strong, he was a monster. Acting on instinct, Owl threw a smoke bomb to blind them. Dalkin caught the pouch mid-air, but before he could crush it, an arrow struck the bag in his hand with surgical precision. As Dalkin roared a promise to slaughter them all, the caped boy screamed for his partner to run. The archer confirmed they were already moving. Survival was the only goal. Realizing that mere bluffs wouldn't save them, the young man asked what their next move was. His partner pulled out a single leaf, eyes focused. They needed to increase their survival rate, even by a fraction of a percent. Wasting no time, the archer wrapped the leaf around his arrowhead, a desperate modification. The arrow was fired, leaving a distinct trail cutting through the air. After stopping to catch his breath, the young man commented he had done everything humanly possible. They stood in the heavy silence of the forest for a moment, simply looking at each other, acknowledging the gravity of their situation. The braided man, Dalkin, materialized before them like a nightmare. He asked why they hadn't fled, revealing he knew every inch of this terrain and promised to eliminate them instantly. Owl stepped forward, telling him not to get in the way. Eddie retorted with a smirk that stealing his cool lines was against the rules. He explained that archers show their true worth when using the environment as cover, warning the villain it was a fatal mistake to treat this like a simple exam. His partner agreed, eyes narrowing. The game had changed. Things were different now, and chaotic team battles were his absolute specialty. Eddie declared he would no longer follow sloppy orders, and the caped boy simply replied, "Okay." Finally, both warriors prepared for combat. Elsewhere, Luo looked toward the forest, commenting that the wind carried a strange scent. He paused, wondering if his heightened senses were just playing tricks on his imagination. Luke called out to him, asking what they would do with the royal horn. The creature conveyed its will. It was best to protect the child and take it to the Recognition Bureau, entrusting the task to her. The boy warned them gravely. That man, Dalkin, wouldn't stay quiet while they escaped. To leave these woods with the animal alive, they would have to defeat Dalkin. His partner nodded, the weight of the mission settling on their shoulders. The young man declared he could think of exactly two methods to survive. The first was to wait for Owl to report and bring reinforcements. But time was a luxury they didn't have. On the other hand, Dalkin's manipulation of Prana was far superior to his own. He wasn't confident he could mask their presence from Dalkin's perception for long. Luke interrupted him, stating that the second method was actually quite simple. A massive flare of energy manifested in the distance. Dalkin turned sharply, questioning what new variable had entered the battlefield. He soon realized the truth: the two youths standing before him were also capable of wielding Prana. The three faced off, the air crackling with tension as they prepared for mortal combat. Owl explained the twist. They were powerless before, but they had evolved. They were now capable of manipulating Prana. Humans awaken this energy by mastering a specific field, but without a trigger, they remain dormant. Owl had honed his team battle senses through the brutal life of mercenary work, reading enemy strength to survive. Eddie was a prodigy archer born of a prestigious lineage, a genius whom no one dared to challenge. Unfortunately, neither had ever known the taste of defeat. But recently, they met an irregular Prana user named Luo. That single encounter was the catalyst that forced them both to awaken. Owl surged forward, clashing head-on with Dalsin. His initial strike was intercepted mid-air, but the counter-strike came instantly. A brutal exchange of blows followed, both fighters landing heavy hits. Shockwaves erupted as their fists collided. In that split second, Owl felt a strange sensation coursing through his hand. Could this be the legendary power of Prana? Watching from the sidelines, Eddie realized the shift. He knew Owl possessed this ability, but witnessing it manifested in this form, that was a first. The archer grinned, his aim now honed to deadly perfection. With lethal focus, he drew back his bowstring and unleashed a precision projectile. Dalson's eyes narrowed. He realized the trap immediately. The arrow wasn't aimed at him, but exactly where he planned to dodge. He twisted his body in a desperate leap to evade, but the arrow sailed past him and struck a bomb mid-air, triggering a chain reaction. Boom! The explosion tore through the sky, creating a thick smokescreen. But amidst the chaos, Dalson looked down, and shock filled his eyes. An arrow was lodged deep in his abdomen. He glared up at the branch where the archer perched. Eddie finally understood the terror of their enemy. Dalson could pinpoint his target no matter where they hid. The enemy realized the truth too late. The archer had used the explosion as cover, scaling the trees in perfect sync with the distraction. It was a masterclass in coordination. The swordsman applied suffocating pressure below, driving the target right into the archer's lethal sights. Owl hesitated. Was this really the enemy's full power? He flashed a covert hand signal, but Dalson's sharp eyes caught it. The realization hit him. These brats were bluffing. Dalson suddenly raised his hands in mock surrender. He scoffed, claiming he had only been playing along to conserve his stamina. His expression darkened. This gap in power, he sneered, cannot be bridged by clever tricks. The beast was finally preparing to fight for real. Refusing to back down, Owl and Eddie charged in unison. They roared, demanding the monster take them seriously. But the difference was overwhelming. Dalson caught the blade with his bare hand. With a burst of brute force, he repelled their combined assault like they were nothing. His speed was godlike. The caped boy could only watch in horror, completely outmatched by the enemy's terrifying reflexes. The braided warrior clamped down on the youth's wrist. Bones creaked under the pressure before he shattered the blade with crushing grip strength. A single, devastating kick sent the young man flying. He slammed into the earth with bone-shaking force. High above, the archer screamed his companion's name in despair. There was no escape. The archer was struck next, plummeting from his perch. Broken and battered on the ground, the caped boy desperately tried to reach out to his friend. The braided nightmare approached slowly, taunting them. He sneered that they were barely clinging to their pathetic lives. He raised a massive fist to deliver the execution blow. But suddenly, an ambush. The fatal strike was blocked at the very last microsecond. The savior stood firm. He thanked them for the message carved on the arrow, claiming it was the only reason he arrived in time to prevent a massacre. Still paralyzed on the ground, Owl rasped a warning for Eddie. Dalson's eyes widened. He recognized this green-haired youth. The newcomer stared back, announcing the final strategy. His voice was cold as steel. He declared that the final method was simple. Lo himself would be the one to bring Dalson down. The atmosphere shattered. It was Lo versus Dalson Iris. Eddie scoffed that Dalson was late, while an observer questioned if the veteran was struggling against mere children. The strategist realized the truth. The only variable he couldn't predict was Lo. Just as he suspected, a knowing smile crossed the man's face. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the showdown between Lo and Dalson Iris had officially begun. Lo gripped his blade, eyes locked on the target. In a flash, Dalson closed the distance, unleashing a punch with the force of a cannon. Clang! Lo parried the heavy blow with his sword. Seizing the momentum, the youth vaulted into the air, delivering a vicious slashing counter. Dalson raised both arms to guard. Immediately, Lo rained down an aerial assault. The impact shook the forest as their power collided. Dalson scoffed, wiping blood from his lip. He admitted the boy's movements had improved, but quickly added with a sneer, it was only a little. He declared Lo was still leagues beneath him. Launching himself forward, Dalson landed a crushing kick. Lo was hurled backward but stuck the landing with cat-like grace. Dalson didn't let up, charging again. But the young swordsman slipped past the attack with a ghostly dodge. The braided giant smashed into the tree behind him, frustrated. He roared, demanding to know why the boy was fleeing. In a single bound, Dalson claimed the high ground. He shouted that running would not bring victory. Moments later, Lo had to slide desperately along the earth to evade a massive tree trunk hurled at him. Dalson descended like a meteor, screaming for the boy to die. But in that split second of life and death, a crucial memory surfaced in Lo's mind. He recalled the stats. Dalson, adventurer rank, 672. A veteran who had survived battles against monsters far stronger than himself. One must never underestimate the weight of that rank. Understanding this, Lo dropped to one knee, stance low, ready to unleash everything. A terrifying aura erupted from the boy. Dalson froze in shock. Lo surged forward, his blade flashing as it connected with the target. The mercenary roared, accusing the brat of stealing his moves. But the swordsman replied coldly, "This? You can't even call this a technique." Dalson screamed for him to stop spouting trash. Lo pressed the attack, stating clearly, "There is no need to clash head-on against a superior force." Flashback. Owl's voice echoed in his mind. "Tactics aren't about creativity," he had said. "They are about memorized patterns of victory." The foundation of all tactics is securing a numerical advantage. He promised to teach them the absolute basics. Owl looked him in the eye. Do you understand? Tactics are simply the art of forcing the enemy into these specific situations. Pattern 1, he declared. The ambush absolute domination through teamwork. Phase 2 involved luring the enemy into their territory. Phase 3 began the moment the duo split apart. A coordinated strike with a hidden unit revealed itself. Owl descended from the heavens. Dalsin gasped, shocked that this bastard could still move. Lo smirked, noting that he was really making the giant work for it. But Dalsin reacted instantly, his massive hand crushing around Owl's throat. Now! Lo roared, charging straight at the enemy. Owl slipped behind the target, locking Dalsin in a hold. You bastard! Too strong! Dalsin released a terrifying wave of energy, blasting everyone backward. The impact sent Owl and Lo flying like ragdolls. The mercenary scoffed. Pity for Lo. He prepared a lethal follow-up, but suddenly times thwack asterisk. An arrow buried itself deep in Dalsin's eye. The giant staggered back, clutching his face. The shot had come from deep within the forest. Eddie, wounded but still deadly, had taken the shot. Bloody and broken, the boy screamed for his teammates to flee. But Lo refused to run. He gripped his blade, eyes burning with determination. He lunged, Steel sang, as Lo drove his sword straight into Dalsin's chest. Dalsin stomped the earth, the ground quaking beneath them. He forced his opponent back, glaring with pure rage. What was that weak strike? Who do you think I am? Aura exploded from the mercenary, flattening Owl instantly. But Lo didn't stop, he advanced again, unleashing another desperate attack. Their powers collided. A massive blast of energy erupted, piercing the clouds and shaking the sky. The force of the collision flung the young swordsman high into the air. Dalsin sneered. You managed to block that? Impressive. But this is the end. He charged a final attack, vowing to crush the boy the moment he landed. I'll give you credit, Lo. You lasted longer than most. But this time, Dalsin roared, his voice thundering. You have no allies to rely on. Just die in silence. Mid-air, Lo twisted his body, bracing for the fall. He landed in a crouch, eyes locked on his target. I am not your only enemy. Dalsin! A girl's scream tore through the battlefield. The mercenary turned toward the voice, his attack interrupted. A white blur struck from the shadows. The beast sank its fangs deep into the mercenary's arm with bone-crushing force. Get off me, you vermin! Dalsin cursed. The girl cried out to the swordsman. Lo, finish it now! Lo leaped, gravity becoming his weapon. He dove from the skies like a meteor, raining a barrage of energy strikes upon Dalsin. Asterisk. Boom, boom, boom. Asterisk. The attacks were relentless. Dalsin realized with horror that the blows wouldn't stop, and they were getting heavier. Lo channeled every ounce of his spirit. Focus. Power. He prepared his final movement. Impact. The ultimate strike slammed into Dalsin, launching the giant backward. Lo touched down, breath ragged. Dust swirled around the crater where Dalsin lay fallen. The girl rushed to Lo's side, panic in her voice. Lo, are you okay? She gasped at his terrible injuries. That was incredible. You actually defeated Dalsin. No, Lo wheezed, struggling to stand. I only knocked him down. He won't stay down for long. Suddenly, a massive hand shot out and crushed the boy's face. The mercenary rose from the dust, killing intent rolling off him in waves. I will kill you. For sure. Lo froze in terror. The bastard was still standing. Let him go, the girl screamed. Dalsin slowly turned his gaze toward her. Fear gripped her heart. She and the beast took a step back. You monster, the mercenary grunted. Even with his godlike strength, he couldn't crush the brat's skull. The white creature lunged again, forcing him to drop low. The swordsman staggered, gripping his weapon. Memories flooded back. Asterisk. Dalsin's voice echoed from the past. How long are we resting? Asterisk. Asterisk. Another voice answered in the memory. Asterisk. No need for haste. Dalsin has stamina to spare. Asterisk. To rise in rank, we must work together. Asterisk, they had said. Present-day Dalsin sneered at the memory. Pathetic. Both of you were pathetic. He advanced, fingers locking around Lo's throat once more. I'll strangle the life out of you right here. Lo kicked and struggled. I can't die. Not in a place like this. A vision appeared, a girl, smiling, extending her hand. The boy gripped Dalsin's massive arm. I won't die. Memories of another girl flashed through his mind, fueling his will. Dalsin's eyes widened. What was this pressure? A sphere of pure energy began to manifest before the boy. The aura exploded, forcing the mercenary back. Lo's mind drifted a gentle wind, clouds scattering across a blue sky. Asterisk. Drawing water from the stream. Touching the earth. Seeing eternity within the sacred light. Asterisk. A voice commanded him. Asterisk. Look forward with your own eyes. Witness the precious days that will never fade. Asterisk, Dalson stared, confusion replacing his rage. What is happening? Dalson screamed as his arm began to disintegrate into light. The limb vanished completely. You bastard, what did you do? The secret art of the Thule tribe had awakened, its power reaching for the heavens. The girl watched, trembling on the ground. Is that really Lo's secret art? She struggled to comprehend the divine power before her. It felt different from any technique she had ever known. Dalson gnashed his teeth, fear turning to desperation. Damn brat, he roared, throwing a punch with his remaining hand. Asterisk, thud. Asterisk. It hit Lo's body, but the boy didn't move. The blow had absolutely no effect. The swordsman unleashed his final strike. The blade slammed squarely into Dalson, sealing his fate as Lo declared the match over. Crushed in defeat, the man spat on the very concept of rankings. His mind drifted back to a bitter memory, an evaluator explaining that to climb higher, raw strength wasn't enough. He needed a team. The official continued, cold and clinical. Dalson had stagnated at rank $5,800.62 for 4 years, a lone wolf in a system built for packs. Dalson slammed his fist onto the desk, the wood cracking under his rage. He screamed that the reasoning was absolute garbage. He demanded judgment based on power alone, roaring that he could crush most 2-digit rankers with one hand tied behind his back. The evaluator remained unmoved. The standards were absolute. Without teamwork scores, there would be no promotion today. Dalson snarled about the rookie who just snatched second place, another solo fighter. The official sighed. True geniuses were exceptions to the rule, and Dalson was not one of them. A dark impulse seized him. If not for the laws, he would have slaughtered the official right where he stood. For a mercenary, the ranking was their lifeline, their status, their god. They lived and died just to see that number climb. Then came the fateful meeting. A man named Ryu, rank 461, and his female partner Mel, rank 5072. Ryu played the sycophant, calling it an honor to party with a hidden master. Dalson scoffed internally, believing he was forced to babysit these weaklings just to check a box. He told himself his lack of teamwork was because he was a lion among sheep. During their mission, a massive griffin descended upon them. Ryu feigned panic, apologizing profusely to Dalson for overlooking such a dangerous beast in their path. The braided warrior didn't flinch. With a single, devastating punch, he obliterated the monster. Standing over the corpse, he barked at the duo to finish the mission quickly. Night fell, and they gathered around the fire. Dalson narrowed his eyes. High-level beasts had been swarming them since he joined, though none could withstand his might. He awoke to the sound of rustling. His companions were sneaking away into the darkness, and he needed to know why. Moving like a shadow, he trailed them, watching from the safety of the trees. He found them harvesting rare materials from his kills. Ryu chuckled, boasting that he could finally indulge in luxury again. Ryu spilled the truth. They were luring beasts for the idiot to kill, then keeping the loot. Mela worried, asking if the brute had caught on. The lad scoffed. There was no way a muscle brain like that noticed anything. They would milk him dry before discarding him. You trash. Dalson emerged from the gloom like a demon. He gave them a simple, terrifying choice. Drop the loot or drop dead. Ryu shouted for Mela, but she never got the chance to move. A brutal fist connected, smashing into her face with bone-shattering force. Ryu scrambled to her side, checking her broken form. He looked up in horror, demanding to know what Dalson had done. The ranker simply spat, "Idiot." Ryu screamed back, arguing that even if they were burdens, striking a comrade was the ultimate sin. He bellowed the cruelest truth. This is exactly why you will never rise in the adventurer rankings. Ryu played his card. He would report this assault, and as a higher ranker with a clean record, his word would crush Dalson's. Then came the manipulation. Ryu offered a generous deal. Apologize now, be their dog, and they would forget this happened. Even Mela nodded through her pain. Dalson stared at them. Did they really expect a dragon to bow to insects just for a number on a badge? A twisted smile slowly spread across his face. Cut to silence. Their lifeless bodies lay on the forest floor. Dalson whispered he had no regrets, but the agency uncovered the slaughter. His past heroics were the only thing that saved him from a cell. Instead, he was stripped of his rank and banished from the guild for 3 agonizing years. During his exile, he found a new path. He sold his sword, and his soul, to the highest bidder. Living recklessly in the underworld, the day for re-registration finally arrived. But by now, Dalson was draped in dirty money. A shadowy trafficker approached him with a forbidden proposal. Why start from the bottom? Why not just buy the rank you deserve? But it wasn't just about status anymore. It was vengeance. He wanted to burn the ranking system to the ground and make that evaluator regret ever looking down on him. Back in the present, his hatred focused on his opponent. That damn brat would soon taste the same despair. But memory gave way to reality. The bitter taste of his limit rose in his throat. The announcer's voice boomed. Victory goes to Lo, adventurer rank 2728. The battle was done. Lo and the girl watched the giant topple, but the moment the adrenaline faded, Lo doubled over in agony. The girl noticed him stumbling away. "Where are you going?" she cried. The swordsman gritted his teeth. It wasn't over yet. The young woman grabbed him. She knew they needed to capture Rosso to expose the mastermind behind the corrupt rankings, but not like this. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, desperate. "Stop! Not now! Look at yourself! We have to wait for the next chance." Lo tried to pull away, but her voice turned soft, comforting him. "It's okay. It's really okay." She held him tighter. "Just finding a true ranker like you. That is enough for today." Lo stopped. He turned, whispering a soft apology that caught her off guard. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the floor. The young woman's scream echoed through the arena. In the aftermath, Eddie was the first to stir, rushing straight to the agency, while Owl stayed behind to tend to the wounded. Even though pain coursed through his body, Owl gritted his teeth. He could still move. If he burned his prana now, he could fight, and it was a price worth paying. While Lo drifted into unconsciousness, his companions handled the chaos. Deep within the abyss of sleep, Lo's mind wandered. A vision materialized his mother, recounting a strange and distant dream of her own. The memory shifted. His mother cradled him, looking at her husband with worry. "Is it wise?" she asked. "Teaching our technique to a 1-year-old?" But the man just smiled. "Techniques aren't just memorized," he whispered. "They are carved into the heart, into the very prana." His voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. When Lo finally awakens his power, the memories will flood back. He will remember everything. Mother held little Lo close as father spoke of their bloodline. "Our ancestors held godlike power," he revealed, "but that power brought ruin." Defeated, the survivor fled to found Thule village. "We live in the shadows now," he continued, his eyes warm. "But because of that sacrifice, the story ends well. Here, far from the flames of war, we found peace." Suddenly, the teenage Lo materialized within the memory. "I think so too, father," he agreed softly. The man turned, testing his son one last time. "Why do you believe that?" It was the final question before the lesson began. The legacy was passed down. Faces flashed before Lo's mind: parents, grandmother, the village elders. The realization hit him like a physical blow. They all knew. They always knew. The day would come when he had to fight. Lo's eyes snapped open, tearing himself from the dream world. A man and the girl stood over him. "He's coming too," the observer noted. The young woman leaned in as Lo sat up, her face etched with concern. "Thank the gods," she sighed, the tension leaving her shoulders. "You've been out for a whole day." "I was terrified. Thanks for patching me up," Lo murmured. He glanced around, spotting a familiar face. "Mr. Loud? Why are you here?" The man grinned. "Ran all the way here while you were sawing logs. Heard your first mission went sideways," Loud explained, helping Lo to his feet. "Couldn't leave you hanging like that." Eddie turned to the mercenary with a raised brow. "Owl, did you really run back to the recognition agency just to report in?" Owl shrugged, his stoic mask slipping. "I was worried. All right?" Attention shifted to the captive. "Dalin, can you walk?" the man asked, slicing through the ropes. "Don't try anything stupid. Resisting now is just a waste of breath." He hauled the prisoner up, marching him outside to join the escort team waiting in the light. The escort's eyes locked onto Dalin's injury. What in the world? It wasn't a cut. The arm hadn't been severed, it had simply vanished, obliterated into nothingness. A chill ran down his spine. To inflict a wound like that on a first-tier knight, something monstrous was at play. Reunited, the party trekked through the dense forest trail. The girl fell into step beside Lo. "Once you're fully healed," she advised, "you need to register for more rankings. Rankings aren't just numbers," she lectured. "They're a mirror for your soul. Look at Dalin. He knew his close combat ranking was unrivaled, and he fought accordingly." Lo nodded slowly. "So, I register to find out where my true strengths lie?" The girl beamed, clapping her hands. "Exactly. Now you're getting it. I'll take you to the capital myself," she promised. "The agency there has the facilities to measure every hidden talent you have." Behind them, the older escort narrowed his eyes, deep in thought. He recalled the prana shockwave he had felt earlier. His suspicions about the boy were hardening into certainty. Is he hiding his power? Or is he a beacon trying to be found? The man mused. His goal, surely, he seeks contact with the island of gods. Meanwhile, Eddie approached a massive stone gate carved with writhing serpents. A hooded figure emerged, bowing low. "Leader, we have been awaiting your return." Eddie's expression darkened as he addressed his followers. "The search is over. We have finally found a descendant of Babel." Taking his place on the throne, the leader's voice boomed. "The plan begins now. We will save this wretched world, a world enslaved by rankings." "Show me your strength," he commanded. Power flared as the group unveiled their true identity, the criminal syndicate, Ouroboros. Rosso Cruel stepped forward 76th in the smuggler ranking. Beside him, Goss Cruel 76th in the trafficker ranking, villains of the highest caliber, and at the helm stood Adam, a man holding multiple high-tier titles, the supreme leader of Ouroboros, the first-tier criminal organization. Back with the heroes, the group reached the sprawling metropolis. "We made it!" the girl cheered, her energy boundless. She immediately took charge. "Owl, Eddie, get to the treatment room, now." "Mr. Loud, you handled Dalin's transfer." Lo chuckled. "You're ordering everyone around like a general." The girl flipped her hair. "Get used to it, it's how I roll." She turned to the trio, her face serious. "Clear your schedules. In 10 days. She held up 3 fingers. "I will have your rankings updated." Owl and Eddie exchanged looks, barely containing their excitement. They could practically taste the prestige awaiting them. The girl pulled Lo aside, her voice dropping. "We need to talk about the Royal Horn. The agency needs a guardian for the beast," she explained. "I want you to take the job." Lo blinked, unsure. "Me? Can I really handle a responsibility like that?" "It's necessary," she insisted. "When a Royal Horn grows, our cages become too small. It needs freedom. As an adventurer, you can take him on walks. It's better for his soul." Lo looked at the creature, resolving himself. "All right, I'll do it." The girl smiled. "Thank you. One last thing," she said. "Give him a name." Lo paused, searching his memories. "Ralph. His name is Ralph." "Ralph?" The girl tilted her head, intrigued. "Is there a story behind that?" Lo's eyes grew distant. "There was a man once. He stood alone against a red grizzly bear, a true warrior staring down a giant. He possessed true courage," Lo said softly. "I'm borrowing his name to honor that spirit." Lo turned to the beast. "Thanks for saving me back there, Ralph." He patted the creature's head. "Let's look out for each other." Ralph stared back, a silent bond forming between master and beast. With Ralph safely secured under the Recognition Bureau's absolute protection, Lo discovered a small loophole allowing him occasional visits. Heading toward the treatment wing, he found Owl and Eddie already buzzing with excitement, speculating wildly about their new standings. Lo couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Just how high would he climb? A thrill of anticipation coursed through his veins. Was this the intoxicating rush that every true ranker felt? But the celebration was cut short. Lo hushed his friends as the door swung open. Enter Dr. Clara. Save a woman who promised to cure any wound in 10 days, but demanded absolute obedience in return. Her finger snapped toward Lo as she barked a command to lie down, grumbling that high-ranking adventurers were nothing but reckless idiots. Settled into their hospital beds, Owl's competitive spirit flared. He declared to Lo that he refused to be left behind. They would reach the top together. The doctor roared for silence. An overwhelming wave of energy surged from her palms, silencing the room instantly. It wasn't just energy. The bandages began to writhe like living serpents, wrapping themselves tightly around Lo's injured body. As the 3 bandaged youths lay there, they marveled at the display. Was this the miracle of Prana? Clara watched with sharp eyes, monitoring their supernatural recovery. Throughout the healing process, the girl visited often, though she always seemed buried under an avalanche of paperwork. Her exhaustion was palpable. The work of a recognizer is legendary, known as the most rigorous and impartial duty in the world. Another woman approached the desk, noting Clara's relentless dedication. The visitor asked if the evaluation was dragging on. With a sigh, the young woman confirmed the burden. There were too many complex judgments weighing on her shoulders. Seizing the moment, the visitor requested contact with a Prana scholar named Ela. The girl nodded, agreeing to investigate the matter. Yet, as she dug through the archives, she hit a wall. There was absolutely zero information regarding a tribe known as Thule. The recognizer frowned, puzzled by the mystery of the technique. 10 days later, the 3 healed lads stood before her in the evaluation room, tension thick in the air. She explained the gravity of the situation. To update such complex rankings, she had to rent this specialized room and process a colossal ocean of data. Owl, wide-eyed, asked how big her team was. She looked him dead in the eye and replied, "She did it all by herself." The trio was stunned, though she admitted to having a little external help. Owl realized then that the path of an adventurer was far more intricate than that of a simple mercenary. He concluded that this recognizer was a monster of competence. Lo bowed his head, admitting he had caused them quite a bit of trouble. The girl shrugged it off. It was just her job, and some geniuses finished in half a day. Now, it was time to cut the pleasantries. The atmosphere shifted. The recognizer announced that the moment of truth had arrived. It was time to update their adventurer rankings. First up was Owl Darcis. His feat, cornering the notorious offender, Dalkin Iris. Current ranking, 6,301. His file shone with praise, excellent insight, tactical brilliance, and alpha leadership. Taking it all into account, his new rank was number 297. Next was Eddie Marksman, current ranking 6,752. The tension mounted. His evaluation highlighted an iron mental fortitude, deep understanding of prana, and unrivaled instincts within forest terrain. The verdict dropped. His new adventurer ranking skyrocketed to number 1,873. Finally, it was Lo's turn. Current ranking 2,728. They analyzed his ecological breakthroughs, the beast outbreak suppression, his lethal swordsmanship, and that mysterious, unidentifiable technique. The room went silent as she calculated every variable. The final number flashed on the screen. Ranking 1,089. The girl noted he nearly smashed the 3-digit barrier in a single leap. Lo nodded. The speed of his growth was terrifying, but her expression darkened. She warned Lo to steel himself. She explained that a ranker is most vulnerable the moment they update their status. The eyes of the world turned toward them. While his friends made incredible strides, Lo's jump was nothing short of revolutionary. With the ranking difficulty curving upward, people across the globe were witnessing a new legend rise. In every corner of the continent, the name Lo was beginning to echo. From this day forward, his life as a ranker would change forever, for better or for worse. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman closed the nightly ranking update, impressed by the youth's explosive growth. A female knight borrowed a ranktel device, her eyes scanning for a specific name that had piqued her interest. She recalled the rumor of an adventurer piercing the 3-digit barrier in one go. As she watched his ranking climb, her eyes widened. Even after the theft of the Kinu Ryu, his potential was undeniable. A shockwave of energy blasted from her, and she quickly apologized for the outburst. She explained she had unconsciously poured too much power into her grip. Meanwhile, Lo and Luke arrived at the gates of an imposing, fortress-like castle. The lad gazed up at the monumental structure. Luke admitted she had no idea the Recognition Bureau controlled a facility of this magnitude. The young woman introduced the massive complex. This was the Bureau's pride and joy, the Challenge Hall. Inside, the air crackled with intensity as warriors tested their limits against cutting-edge equipment. Luke nudged him, recalling their earlier conversation about registering for various specialized rankings. She explained that the Challenge Hall was a goldmine, a place to measure skills and receive instant classification. However, she noted that only the simplest rankings could be updated here. Lo quickly deduced the system's nature. Some classifications were easy to grind, while others required blood and sweat. Luke clarified that she had already updated Lo's sword speed ranking remotely, but his core adventurer rank required his physical presence at the Bureau. Lo scanned the leaderboard. The entry-level rankings were flooded with competition, but they offered the perfect foothold. It was time to make his mark. He stroked his chin, deep in thought. Luke didn't take her eyes off him for a second. The recognizer was analyzing every micro-movement of her charge. Lo looked toward the horizon, eyes focused on the goal. Luke sprang into action, her voice brimming with excitement. She was ready to dissect his skills until the sun went down. She pumped him up. High placement here meant a fast track up the adventurer leaderboard. She urged him to hold nothing back. Lo posed a critical question. "Can I use prana?" Luke confirmed it was part of his innate ability. That was all he needed to hear. The energy began to gather. First up, the sprint. He tore down the track like a gale of wind. He crossed the line in a blur. The scoreboard flickered to life. Rank 871st. Next came the vertical jump. He launched himself up the building face, defying gravity. The result? Rank 1057th. He didn't stop there. Grip strength, weightlifting, reflexes, he crushed them all. From balancing on a beam to testing his lung capacity, he was a machine. Then, the sensory tests. Lo channeled prana to sharpen his perception. The results were shocking. Rank 104th in hearing, and an incredible rank 98th in smell. Luke checked her clipboard. They had cleared almost every physical metric. Only the endurance test remained, but they would save that beast for later. The crowd buzzed with whispers. Veteran adventurers couldn't believe their eyes. Who is this kid? He broke into the 4-digit rankings instantly. Luke leaned in. With scores like that, he was already attracting attention. She warned him to adjust quickly. The eyes of the world were now on him. But amidst the gawking crowd, one gaze felt heavier. In the distance, a mysterious silver-haired knight watched him with hawk-like intensity. Luke analyzed the data. His training with Eddie had laid a foundation, but this was different. Lo possessed a terrifying natural aptitude for wielding prana and heightening his senses. She searched for the right description. He wasn't just an athlete. He was a wild animal. Lo muttered the word to himself, tasting its truth. Wild. Luke continued her breakdown. His raw power had room to grow, but his agility was his true weapon. Focusing on speed and fluidity would be his path to the top. She crossed her arms, admitting she was in a pleasant dilemma on how to guide him. Lo nodded respectfully. Her judgment was sharp. Just then, a man stepped forward. Luke stiffened, immediately recognizing him. It was Manager Gran. Lo looked confused. "Who is this?" Luke hissed at him to bow before such a high-ranking official, but Gran waved a hand, a gentle smile on his face. Formalities are unnecessary among adventurers. Lo paused. He had heard those words before. He finally recognized the man, the branch manager of the Trichista Recognition Bureau. Luke quickly explained the protocol. To maintain absolute impartiality, recognizers usually held no hierarchy, but Mr. Gran was a living legend. He was the exception to the rule, famous across the city for managing elite rankers and overseeing the updates for the mighty Mr. Loud. The memory clicked. Mr. Loud had said the exact same thing about courtesy. Great minds clearly thought alike. Gran turned his gaze to Lo, his voice turned somber. He claimed he wasn't a good recognizer, especially when it came to Lo. He dropped a bombshell. Dalsin Iris had been under his direct supervision. He had come personally to offer an apology and his gratitude. He called Lo a rising star who had smashed through the wall of rankings. Then, the manager bowed deeply. He thanked Lo for stopping Mr. Dalsin before it was too late. Gran explained that the investigation into Dalsin's fall was over. The truth was ugly. Dalsin's so-called companions had tried to manipulate and use him. They had dragged him into a lifestyle of excess, incompatible with a true ranker's path. The Bureau had been watching them for a long time, but by the time the Bureau moved to intervene, Dalsin had already taken matters into his own hands. Gran only wished Dalsin had trusted them enough to ask for help. The manager's voice grew firm. Recognizers examine rankers with pride. False reports and corruption are never tolerated in my bureau. Lo nodded slowly. He understood the code. But he looked Gran in the eye and spoke plainly. This wasn't your fault, manager. Gran blinked in surprise. Lo continued, his voice steady. Rankers have their own minds. Recognizers are there to support, not to hold our hands through every choice. Lo concluded with a warrior's wisdom. Rankers live by their pride. Dalsin simply followed his. Meanwhile, deep in the city prison, Gran stood before a dark cell. It's been a while, he whispered. Inside, heavily chained, Dalsin Iris looked up. He recognized the old manager immediately. Gran didn't mince words. He asked the question that haunted him. Why haven't you escaped? With your monstrous strength, those chains are like paper. Dalsin didn't rise. He simply grunted. Shut up, old man. Gran understood. Even fallen, a true ranker acknowledges the hierarchy of power. By staying, Dalsin was showing respect to the one who defeated him. He recognized Lo as his superior now. It took a young boy to remind Gran of what a ranker's pride truly meant. Back outside, the manager exhaled, grateful once again. Mr. Gran adjusted his coat. He was taking his leave, but he had one final question. What is your next move? Luke answered for them. The day wasn't over. They were going to crush a few more rankings. Gran raised an eyebrow. Which ones? Luke's eyes gleamed. She was eyeing the most prestigious category of all, the Way of the Sword. The manager was intrigued, especially about Lo's Prana capacity, but he offered a grave warning. Measuring Prana here will be a challenge. He explained the paradox. This country is technologically advanced, but we are primitive when it comes to Prana. Our machines simply cannot quantify that kind of power. Luke looked confused. Gran walked away, throwing one last piece of advice over his shoulder. If you want to stay by Lo's side as his recognizer, you had better be prepared. Lo watched him go. What did he mean by that? Luke stayed silent. For the first time that day, the analyst had no answer. Lo glanced at the devices humming with magical energy, noting they were designed to measure prana levels. Luke confirmed she intended to run some tests, but recalled the manager's warning. With a sharp look, she suggested they aim for the sword-related rankings first. Are they similar to the speed trials? Lo asked, his curiosity piqued. Speed is just one factor, Luke replied, explaining the complexity of the tests. Suddenly the girl raised a finger to her lips, her expression turning serious. I have a critical request for you. She leaned in, whispering urgently. Whatever you do, do not use the Kensu Ryu style here. Lo blinked, confused. Why? Is it forbidden? Luke's eyes narrowed. Kensu Ryu isn't just a style. It is the single-blow transmission. A legendary technique only the first knight in the rankings is permitted to inherit. For every knight in this kingdom, she continued, her voice trembling with reverence, mastering Kensu Ryu is the ultimate dream, the apex of power. She emphasized that the vast majority of rankers dedicate their lives just for a chance to glimpse it. Hearing this, Lo finally understood the terrifying weight of the swordsmanship he had mastered so casually. Those cuts you launch without thinking, the girl whispered. To the rest of the world, that is a divine, advanced technique. She clarified the grim statistics. Only 800 people out of 2 billion could perform such a feat. Luke then revealed the origin. The founder of Kensu Ryu was none other than Lawrence Wolfe Riven, the first knight. He was a peerless swordsman and a brilliant scholar, Luke explained. He developed countless techniques during his era, but Kensu Ryu was his masterpiece. A swordsmanship that manipulates invisible cuts freely. Its value is beyond measure. Luke gripped his arm. Hide it. If you expose that ability now, you'll invite trouble from the highest-ranking knights. Lo nodded, agreeing to keep his true power in the shadows. She signaled him to approach the ranking challenge. The lad hesitated. Is it wise to register if I can't show my full potential? I'd hate to be underestimated. Better to be underestimated than targeted, he mused, but Luke shook her head. Confidence isn't gained in the shadows. Register first. Besides, she added with a knowing smirk, I don't think you have anything to worry about. They arrived at the consecutive cuts arena. The challenge was simple. Strike a special regeneration-resistant rock to measure the sheer volume of wounds. A swordsman stepped up, unleashing a flurry of blows against the stone surface. The scoreboard flashed. 1,862. Not bad, Lo noted, analyzing the speed. As the man stepped back, the wounds on the rock hissed and healed instantly. Lo pointed at the stone. A smooth transformation of energy should yield better results. He stepped forward, attacking the stone with a sequence of lightning-fast blows. The scoreboard flickered to life. 749. A modest result, obtained using only raw prana and zero technique. Next was the precision cut ranking. The goal. Pass the blade through a microscopic slit between two steel plates without touching them. A participant executed a careful strike. The scoreboard read 734. A spectator clapped, shouting, A true swordsman belongs in the 3 digits. Well done. Lo stepped into position, his hand resting on his hilt. He breathed out, executing a single, clean cut. The 2 spectators gasped. The scoreboard marked 87. Lo turned to Luke, whispering, Since I've mastered smooth transformation, it's time to practice the 3rd technique. The young woman stared at the board. Even without unleashing the forbidden Kensu Ryu, Lo had already surpassed the precision of most elite rankers. Luke smiled to herself. Her evaluation of the monster beside her was correct. Do you have your ranker card? She asked. The one from Azaban Forest? The lad handed over the card. We can register up to 10 different classifications on this, Luke explained, inserting it into the console. The automated voice announced it would register his highest scoring attributes. What exactly counts as a high classification? Lo asked. Behind them, a silver-haired knight watched, her eyes narrowing dangerously. The woman stepped out of the shadows. Is that classification really so impressive? She scoffed. The knight positioned herself before the challenge rock. With a single, devastating kick, she obliterated a large chunk of the reinforced stone. Dust settled as the scoreboard revealed her power level. 29th place. Lo's eyes widened, recognizing the absurdity of such a rank. The knight turned, her gaze cold. Why the surprised face? If you actually tried, she said, her voice dripping with accusation, you could do the same. She took a step closer. I know what you are. You're a Kensu Ryu user. The lad froze. His secret had been laid bare in seconds. Luke tensed, calling out to Lo, but it was too late. The silver-haired knight pointed her blade at him. I propose a duel. If I win, you will abandon the way of the sword forever. It was a cruel condition. Give up the sword? Lo repeated, his expression unreadable. You want to bet my entire future? Not here, the knight commanded, turning on her heel. Follow me. Setsu walked away with regal confidence, while Lo and Luke exchanged a worried glance before following. They arrived at a secluded grassy courtyard. This location will serve as your graveyard, she stated calmly. Lo sighed. Revealing the Kensu is humiliating. I really didn't want anyone to see it. The knight drew her weapon. I am Setsu Aurelia, ranked 305th. I expect the bare minimum of courtesy. Her eyes burned with intensity. Do you understand the weight of a ranker's pride? Luke stepped forward. How? How did you know he uses Kensu Ryu? Setsu scoffed. He used the technique shamelessly during the adventurer registration exam. A senior knight witnessed the entire display. She revealed, her grip tightening on her sword. After hearing the description, I knew instantly. You stole it. Lo frowned. I didn't steal anything. Setsu ignored him. Did Master Adal teach you personally? Answer me. Before he could speak, she laughed bitterly. Ridiculous. Adal is a noble of the highest order. He would never associate with a stray dog like you. I am the one chosen to inherit Kensu Ryu from Master Adal. Setsu roared, her aura flaring. He stated it clearly. You are nothing but a thief. Lo dismisses her skill, assuming she merely mimicked the technique from dusty old records. The knight's eyes blaze with fury. She accuses him of slandering a legend and offers mercy only if he begs for forgiveness on his knees. But the young man doesn't back down. He swears Adal was his true teacher. Setsu freezes, her gaze piercing through him as she demands he repeat that absurdity. He clarifies that he served as Adal's disciple for a single year. That was the wrong thing to say. Setsu clenches her fists until her knuckles turn white, grinding her teeth in rage. To her, his words are blasphemy. She screams that he has defiled her very soul and mocked her idol. For this crime, Lo deserves nothing less than to be cut down where he stands. The system board lights up, announcing the mismatch. Setsu Aurelia, rank 3005, versus Lo, a lowly rank 1089 adventurer. Without hesitation, Setsu launches herself at him with blinding speed. Her blade strikes with lethal intent, but Lo is ready. He intercepts the blow, his sword crying out as it halts her advance. He knows he cannot remain passive. Preparing his own glittering blade, he warns that he will strike back. Setsu's eyes widen. She recognizes the signature of a gale attack. Undeterred, she steadies her grip, resolving to counter with the exact same technique. Two glittering blades, two raging gales, poised to tear each other apart. The techniques collide with devastating force. From the sidelines, Luke analyzes the impact, realizing that Setsu's gale carries a frequency slightly different from Lo's. The difference becomes clear immediately. The knight's technique isn't just different, it is significantly faster and sharper than his. Steel meets steel in a flurry of sparks as they exchange blows in the center of the arena. The resulting explosion of energy hurls them both backward. Yet, Lo refuses to yield and readies himself for round two. Setsu studies his stance with a cold sneer. Since he dared to use the soft transformation, she decides to show him what the real version looks like. They charge again, both unleashing the soft transformation of the middle path. The air trembles as their secret arts crash against one another once more. Neither side gives an inch, locked in a desperate power struggle. Luke watches in awe, calling this an impossible duel between two masters of the legendary Kensu Ryu style. But soon, confusion clouds his admiration. Kensu Ryu is a unique succession style. If Lo truly learned it from Adal, it is physically impossible for Setsu to wield it too. Lo grits his teeth, preparing his next move. He realizes the hard truth. Her soft transformation operates on a different level. It feels rustic, yet it is driven by a purity of skill that eclipses his own understanding. The difference in skill manifests in pain. Lo is blasted backward by the sheer weight of her blow, crashing away while Setsu remains immovable like a mountain. She watches him fall in silence. Lo struggles to his feet, raising his trembling sword. The knight stands tall, her faith in Master Adal burning brighter than ever before. She claims total victory in both the glittering blade and the middle path. Now, she challenges him to the final test, the wild path. Lo looks ragged, his wounds beginning to take their toll. She taunts him mercilessly. Can he only manage two techniques of the style? With a cruel smirk, she reminds him of his bold claim to be Adal's disciple. Where is that power now? Luke frantically scans the data on his device. He discovers a shocking detail. Setsu Aurelia is only 17 years old, exactly the same age as Lo. The young woman digs deeper into the combat analytics. The numbers don't lie. Setsu's parameters destroy Lo's in every category. The data screams one undeniable fact. The current Lo has absolutely zero chance of winning a sword fight. But the young man isn't finished yet. Abandoning pure swordsmanship, he taps into a different source of power. He begins to chant, reciting verses of gentle winds and scattered clouds as energy gathers around him. Setsu falters, stunned. Is a rookie like him actually attempting to weave magic through poetry? His ascension speed is abnormal, but she doesn't care. The knight readies her ultimate strike, declaring that she will obliterate him. No fancy trick can defeat her godlike speed. Screaming for her pride as a knight, Setsu launches her final assault. Lo remains calm amidst the storm. He continues his chant, speaking of those who draw water, tend the land, and feed on life itself to witness eternity. Setsu's eyes go wide with recognition. She knows this technique. It is a sacred power, reserved only for the chosen ones. Lo's voice thunders with authority. He commands the invader to look forward with their own eyes, to witness the precious days that will never fall to ruin. Setsu roars, determined to shatter him and his poetry in a single, devastating collision. She unleashes her glittering blade, firing a gale of catastrophic power. The attack slams into the earth, throwing up a massive curtain of dust and debris. She strains her eyes to see the aftermath. Impossible! As the dust settles, Lo stands completely unharmed, protected by the secret technique of the Tuli tribe. Setsu gasps, unable to comprehend how he survived without a scratch. Is this a defensive barrier? She senses his prana wrapping around him like invisible armor. But beyond the defense, the knight feels a chilling, familiar sensation. Her killer instinct screams at her to freeze. Taking advantage of her hesitation, Lo explodes forward, sword raised high. Setsu snaps back to reality. His movements are basic, but the energy is wrong. She decides to end this duel instantly before he pulls off another anomaly. She engages the wild path. The knight swings with lethal precision, but Lo is already moving to meet her. She notices he isn't blocking. Is he suicidal? No, at the very last fraction of a second, Lo leaps over her strike. Setsu looks up in terror. Lo's blade hovers mere inches from her forehead. He has bypassed her defense completely. With a cold stare, He declares his victory. Luke throws his hand up, screaming for the match to end. Setsu collapses to her knees in defeat. But the victor isn't faring much better. Lo crumples to the floor, prompting Luke to rush to his side. The young woman asks if he's all right, panic in her voice. Lo grunts through the pain, admitting that his body is paralyzed and refuses to obey his commands. Luke realizes the terrifying cost of that power. The technique places such a massive burden on Lo that he can only sustain it for 5 seconds. Setsu watches them silently, her expression unreadable. The knight whispers Master Adal's name, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the strength leaves her legs. Setsu falls to the ground, burying her face in her hands as uncontrollable tears begin to flow. She demands to know why Master Adal would teach the legendary Kenyu Ryu to a nobody like Lo. Luke steps in, asking if he may address her as Setsu. The young woman nods. She understands a knight's admiration for the style, but launching a sudden attack? That was simply reckless. Setsu demands a reason. Rising to her feet, she declares with burning conviction that she is the only disciple Master Adal ever acknowledged. Her mind drifts back to the past, a time when her rank as a knight had hit a wall, refusing to rise no matter how hard she tried. Back then, Master Adal secretly instructed her in the sword. His voice was gentle as he advised her to loosen her death grip on the weapon. As the master walked away, clarity struck Setsu. She was certain of it. He intended to pass the Kenyu Ryu legacy to her alone. Back in the present reality, the proud knight remains kneeling on the grass, humbled. Luke presses her, pointing out that Master Adal is famous for never accepting students. Setsu insists she was the exception, a talent the master surely recognized. She recalls training until her body screamed, fueled by the belief that Adal was waiting for her return. The knight trembles, clutching an object tight against her chest. Slowly, she opens the locket resting in her palm. Inside lies a portrait of Master Adal. Setsu dissolves into tears again, screaming the master's name in agony. Luke realizes the embarrassing truth. She is just an obsessive fan. Lo struggles to his feet, stating he never lied, while Luke calls out to him. She asks if he can stand already. Lo grimaces, admitting his body still feels heavier than lead. He reaffirms the truth he became Adal's disciple and learned the Kenyu Ryu directly from the source. Setsu, still grounded, clenches her fists and whispers that she knows. Lo notes that Master Adal's sword is unmistakable. He admits that her Kenyu Ryu was indeed real. The knight confesses she learned only by watching from afar, unlike him. Lo murmurs that he had sensed something different in her strikes. To reproduce such a technique merely through observation, he considers her talent even more terrifying than his own. Setsu stands tall. Since she proposed the bet, she accepts her fate. If he orders it, she will surrender her title as a knight this instant. Luke jumps in, insisting there is no need for such extremes. But Lo cuts in, she has the right to demand anything, so the reverse must be true. Setsu spreads her arms wide, surrendering to his will. The young man studies her, asking if he can truly ask for anything. Anxiety grips Setsu as she imagines his request. Lo, Setsu, Aurelia, and Luke sit in heavy silence amidst the open field. Suddenly, Setsu stands and announces she is ready for the worst, but Lo asks her to hold on a second. The knight warns him. Perverted requests, like touching her body, are strictly forbidden. Lo stares blankly, asking why he would ever want to do that. Setsu freezes in shock. He then reveals his true terms. First, help him raise his adventurer rank. Second, teach him her version of the Kenyu Ryu style. Setsu is confused. Surely he knows the style better than she does? Lo shakes his head. His skills are lacking. He explains that her Kenyu Ryu, born from pure imitation, possesses a reproduction quality that is nothing short of genius. The knight explains her stance. Because these are Master Adal's techniques, she refuses to dishonor him by displaying an incomplete style. Lo asserts that even losers have pride. He asks Luke for the rank tell to search for knight missions, confirming he can accept them if he accompanies the main contractor. Luke continues, explaining that taking missions from other classes is the fastest path to ranking up. It forces a warrior to master multiple skills. She uses their current situation as an example. This valuable experience converts into bonus points, allowing them to surpass their rivals. Lo asks if he should take the leap. Setsu nods, encouraging him that this is his chance to evolve as an adventurer. Luke adds that knight rankings value trust above all. It requires not just brute strength, but dignity, just like Adal. Lo whispers to Setsu that her version of Adal sounds like a stranger. He claims Adal has a terrible personality and does things halfway, making Setsu ask if he has a death wish. Luke corrects him immediately. Adal possesses exemplary conduct and a pristine reputation among the knights. As proof, he holds the rank of 5th most reliable superior. A title one does not achieve merely with sword skills. The girl recalls an interview where Adal declared that protecting the people is a knight's sacred duty. Setsu notes, the article is from a newspaper 4 years ago. Luke is stunned. She remembers the exact date. Lo simply asks, who said that? He realizes he has no idea what Adal has been doing since they parted ways. As they leave the village, chaos erupts elsewhere. A peaceful settlement is suddenly annihilated by giant creatures. A little girl screams for her parents amidst the ruins. One of the beasts locks onto her, advancing for the kill. The girl squeezes her eyes shut as the claws descend. Suddenly, a blade flashes. A knight cuts the creature down, saving her at the final second. He turns to the trembling child with a gentle voice. Everything is fine now. Nearby, knights fight desperately, shouting to hold the line until the commander arrives. But then, the earth begins to shake violently, freezing everyone in fear. The earth splits open. A colossal nightmare, the tyrant worm, rises from the depths to devour the world. Even the knights freeze, their minds unable to process the sheer scale of the horror before them. A nobleman falls to his knees, hope shattering like glass. It's over. We're all dead, he whimpers. The beast's massive maw unhinges, a cavern of death ready to swallow the survivors whole. Retreat! Fall back! A knight screams. But a calm voice cuts through the chaos. No need. In that split second, the commander raises his weapon, his presence overwhelming the battlefield. Adal delivers a single, vertical strike. The air itself seems to scream as the blade connects. In an instant, the invincible tyrant worm is cleaved cleanly in two. Silence falls over the ruins. One of the trembling survivors steps forward, eyes wide with awe. That power. Are you the first-ranked knight? I am Adal, commander of the Knights of Marsis, he announces, his voice steady as stone. Fear not. No more blood will be spilled today. Relief washes over the crowd, erupting into a roar of worship for Master Adal. A chorus of cheers shakes the heavens. Master Adal, our savior. The commander stands amidst the adoration, offering a perfect, heroic smile to the people he saved. Cut. 2. Headquarters. The heroic facade vanishes completely. Adal hangs upside down on a plush sofa, groaning like a dying man. Why is everything so incredibly annoying? A woman enters, thanking him for the mission. Adal smirks, lazy arrogance returning. Top-tier service, right? Especially the part where I pretended to be charming. Oscar-worthy performance. She ignores his sass, pointing to a mountain of documents. This pile exists because you keep vanishing, Commander. Do your job. Adal drags himself upright, the atmosphere in the room shifting slightly. When I took this mantle, Adal reminds her, I agreed to be the symbol of order, the perfect leader. But I also told you clearly I times will times disappear when I need to. The assistant sighs, surrendering. Fine, I won't ask where you go. Her gaze sharpens, locking onto his chest. But that wound. Who managed to hurt times you ? Oh, you saw that? Adal touches his chest. The woman nods gravely. Rumors are already spreading through the knighthood like wildfire. The commander, bleeding? To land a hit on a monster like you, she analyzes. The attacker must be a grandmaster of the highest caliber. Adal laughs softly. You're not wrong. He flops back onto the sofa, hiding his expression. That boy. He's growing fast. He turns away, a shadow crossing his eyes. Lo, you're doing well. But swordsmanship alone couldn't reach me. Adal thinks, his mind drifting to the duel. No. In that moment, the boy awakened something forbidden. Flashback. Steel clashes against steel. Lo and Adal are locked in fierce combat. Suddenly, the youth unleashes a strange, terrifying energy directly at the commander. Adal's eyes widen, a sensation he hasn't felt in years, tears through his body. Fear? No. Shock. My prana. It vanished. The moment that energy touched him, his defense was nullified. The commander realizes a terrifying truth. If I don't get stronger, that kid might actually kill me next time. Back in reality, Adal stares at the ceiling. Lo's official ranking is a joke compared to the monster he's becoming. Become stronger, kid. Strong enough to crush anything in your path. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Setsu slams a paper onto the table. I've decided. We're taking this one. She slides a new commission toward Lo and Luke. Client, Thomas Balulin. Objective. VIP escort on the Continental Railway. The brief is grim. It's not a vacation. It's a war zone on rails. Rumors of elite assassins are swirling. They need professionals, not amateurs. Deep in the shadows. A cavernous room, dimly lit. Two hooded figures step into the darkness, an air of malice clinging to them. We move now, one whispers. But word of this must not reach the leader. Not yet. The voice continues, cold and calculating. We need data. We must know exactly how far the awakening has progressed. Depending on what we find, we may have to reveal the true nature of the Lord's Island to the boss. A robotic entity chimes in, gears whirring. Our targets align. Perhaps an alliance is in order. Asterisk, cut to the station. Asterisk, the Iron Beast awaits the imposing Dream Zephyr. This mechanical leviathan is the lifeline connecting the Kingdom of Valar to the Republic of Aereo. A bridge of steel across the continent. 6,000 kilometers, 31 cars, 616 lives on board. Lo stares up at the engine, dumbstruck. How? How does something this massive even move? Luke scans the crowd. Focus. We need to locate Thomas Balulin. Look for the man on the platform who screams filthy rich. Setsu leans in, her voice sharp. Lo, behave yourself. Be polite. In escort missions, trust is more valuable than gold. The moment you see him, she instructs, show your ranker card. Prove your identity immediately. There he is, Thomas Balulin, surrounded by guards, sneering at them. What is this? Why is a country bumpkin standing in my way? Lo extends his card times smack. Asterisk Balulin knocks it to the dirty ground. I don't need to see trash, he roars. My life is on the line, and they send me an idiot? Unacceptable. Setsu steps forward, eyes narrowing. Did you not check our background, sir? Balulin scoffs. I didn't expect a brat like him. The girl straightens her posture, an aura of nobility radiating from her. I am Setsu Aurelia, one of the Sword Saint candidates. The words hit Balulin like a physical blow. His jaw drops. Sword? Saint? The client's arrogance evaporates instantly. A Sword Saint candidate, a warrior destined to potentially stand at the very peak of the world's rankings. Legendary potential. Her compatibility with the blade is unmatched in history. Setsu Aurelia, the youngest prodigy to ever claim the title. She gestures calmly to Lo. And this man? He is even more skilled than I am. Balulin's panic turns to hope. Trembling slightly, Thomas Balulin picks up the card from the dirt. He reads the rank. He gulps. I see. I can trust you. And her? The client asks, pointing to the third member. Luke bows elegantly. I am Luke, Lo's exclusive appraiser. Balulin exhales, the tension leaving his shoulders. An appraiser too? Thank God. He wipes sweat from his brow. After the recent attacks, I've been a nervous wreck. Belen's personal guards offer their final salutes. Their duty calls them back to the Republic. With solemn faces, they entrust the merchant's life to the new party until they return. As the soldiers vanish, the client scoffs. Talk is cheap, after all. A dark look crosses his face in this world. It is troublesome when you cannot even trust your own blood. Setsu cuts to the chase. They need a secure location for the briefing. Balulin nods and leads the way toward the ultra-exclusive gold car. The veteran knight glances at Lo. It is his first time on the legendary Dream Zephyr, isn't it? She takes the lead, offering a tour to ensure a smooth escort mission. She points out the layout. 8 bronze cars for the commoners, 2 bustling restaurant cars, even a dedicated carriage just for pets. The group pushes forward. They navigate through 2 entire cars transformed into high-end department stores. Next comes the sanctuary of the library car. Beyond that lie the 6 silver cars, reserved for the wealthy elite. The amenities are endless. A public bathhouse, a fully staffed hospital, a lush vegetable garden, and even a swimming pool on rails. Setsu notes the luxury restaurant before they finally breach the gold car, the playground of the very rich. Thomas Balulin opens his suite, gesturing to the cabin right next door for his protectors. But Setsu is not here for luxury. Her eyes sharpen. It is time to talk about the enemy. The merchant hesitates, weighing his words. Finally, he speaks. It is just a rival merchant guild. The knight's gaze narrows. Is it the infamous L Guild? Balulin flinches. How could she know? Setsu shrugs coolly. She merely did her homework on the assignment. The merchant confirms with a vague nod. He insists they only need to deal with the assassins sent by the competition. Setsu senses the lie in his vagueness. She presses harder. How long has this threat loomed? He claims it is recent, a desperate ploy to sabotage his business deal in the Republic. Lo senses the tension. Some secrets are dangerous to uncover. Balulin quickly agrees. Ignorance is safer for everyone. The knight switches to tactical mode. She orders Lo to guard the corridor, while she analyzes the room's layout. But before the rookie can leave, Setsu's voice halts him. His rank is skyrocketing at a terrifying pace. But power without experience is a fatal flaw. She drives the point home. Never drop your guard. This is not a duel. It is his first time facing a cold-blooded assassin. The young swordsman absorbs the warning. His expression hardens into steel. He and Luke step out to patrol the hallway. Lo sighs, the confusion evident on his face. There is simply too much he does not know yet. Luke offers a reassuring smile. It is natural for a newcomer to the capital. Suddenly, Lo's curiosity peaks. How does the door move on its own? The appraiser explains the magic. It runs on a fusion of electricity and a specialized form of prana. Luke elaborates. The Republic of Ariel leads the world in Prana research. The Dream Zephyr is the crown jewel of their technology. She points out the similarity to the Appraisal Bureau's doors. It is no coincidence the Republic supplies their tech as well. Lo gazes out at the passing landscape. The world is truly vast. His thoughts drift to a familiar face, Yuna. Staring at the horizon, melancholy hits him. If only she could have joined them on this journey. A heavy silence falls between them. Luke breaks the quiet. She has news. Once they reach the Republic, they might finally uncover the truth about the Isle of Gods. Lo is stunned. But before he can react, a stranger brushes past them in the narrow corridor. Luke lowers her voice. She looked into his ranking update anomaly. Nothing. It is unheard of for the Appraisal Bureau to be this blind. But there is one parallel, a single mystery that mirrors Lo's situation. The Isle of Gods itself. A land erased from their records. Two massive voids of information, and Lo stands at the center of both. The appraiser presents her theory. His connection to that forbidden island might be the very reason his ranking procedure glitched. She reminds him that standard equipment shattered trying to measure his prana. But the advanced tech in the Republic, that might be the key. The Republic of Ariel. Lo mutters the name, feeling the weight of destiny attached to it. Luke trembles with anticipation. His true power levels are about to be revealed. Suddenly, Lo's eyes snap to the side. Danger. Setsu joins them, asking if he sensed it. The young man confirms with a sharp nod. The knight advises him to act natural, no need to warn her about the attack timing. They prowl down the corridor. Lo is puzzled. What did she mean by the timing? The intercom crackles. The Dream Zephyr is departing. A pleasant voice welcomes the passengers to their journey. The massive locomotive lurches forward. Lo loses his footing and stumbles. Asterisk. Zip. Asterisk. A dagger slices the air, occupying the exact space where his head was a split second ago. The passerby turns, a gleaming weapon in his grip. Luke gasps. Lo did not dodge on purpose, he just did not know the train would move. It was pure, dumb luck. If he had not tripped, he would be a headless corpse right now. The assassin sneers, closing the distance. Lucky brat. He guarantees the next strike will land true. From that awkward position on the floor, the boy is helpless. Die comfortably, the killer hisses, but Lo's hand is already on his hilt. In a blur of motion, he hurls an object straight at the killer's face. The assassin swats it away effortlessly with his dagger. Cheap tricks won't buy you tea. Suddenly, his field of view goes black. It was the scabbard. A distraction. In that split second of blindness, Lo explodes forward. Asterisk. Bam! Asterisk. A fist buries itself in the assassin's chest, while Lo's other hand snatches his falling blade from midair. Luo wastes no time. Instantly, his grip tightens on the blade, his body locking into a lethal combat stance. The air grows heavy in the narrow train corridor. The assassin lunges, a blur of motion. Luo drops low, barely blocking the enemy's strike with steel-shattering precision. But the killer is slippery. Using Luo's own body as a springboard, the assassin vaults over him, spinning midair to launch a blindside attack. Steel rings against steel. Luo deflects the dual daggers with a flick of his wrist. He doesn't wait, slamming his sword hilt straight into the man's chest with bone-breaking force. The assassin collapses, gasping. Luo realizes the chilling truth: every strike was aimed at his solar plexus. With the threat neutralized, his gaze snaps to Luke. She rushes to his side, panic in her voice. "Are you hurt?" But Luo shakes his head, eyes narrowing. "It's not over. I sense 2 more signatures. They are already here." He kicks open a cabin door, shouting Setsu's name, but the scene stops him dead. The knight stands amidst 3 unconscious bodies, looking bored. "You're late, Luo." Luo stands speechless. He and Luke step over the carnage, realizing the terrifying speed of the ambush. They struck the moment the wheels started turning. Luo mutters. Setsu wipes her blade. "We should halt the journey. This level of aggression is abnormal. Their moves are too radical," she warns. But Thomas Balulin cuts in, his voice grim but resolute. The deal proceeds. "We cannot stop, no matter what." Setsu sighs but nods. "Fine. Then we dispose of this trash quietly. The passengers and the train's operation must remain undisturbed." She grabs an unconscious assassin by the collar, dragging him toward the window. Luo frowns. Is that how they got in? Without a word, Setsu hurls the man out into the rushing wind. The attackers' bodies tumble down the embankment, disappearing beside the tracks. "Interrogation is useless with these types," Setsu says coldly. "Better to discard them miles away from our destination." "Won't the fall kill them?" Luo asks. Setsu smirks. "Hardly. With their skill level, they will survive." Unfortunately, Setsu turns to Thomas. "We hold the strategy meeting right here. Don't wander off." She then shifts her gaze to the appraiser. "Luke, give me the numbers on that assassin." Luke pushes up her glasses. Crime ranking, roughly 500. But his combat flexibility matches a rank 300 knight. He was dangerous. In a head-on clash, he was weak, Luke continues. If Luo hadn't slipped up, the fight would have ended in a heartbeat. Pathetic, Setsu scoffs. If that's the best they have, I can slaughter them all single-handedly. Luke nods in agreement. Finally, the knight locks eyes with her student. And you? How did it feel? Luo clenches his fist. Difficult. Dealing with him. It wasn't easy. That is the wall, Setsu says solemnly. Every ranker hits it eventually. The barrier between the digits. Luke elaborates for the confused Luo. It refers to the massive chasm in power that exists at the border of digits in all rankings. A single number difference can mean an ocean of power, she explains. Countless warriors spend their lives trying to bridge that gap, only to fail. With your current standing, Luo, Luke points out, you are staring directly at the 3-digit wall. The realm beyond is a different beast entirely. Exactly, Setsu adds. The missions from here on out will demand perfection. Frankly, this might be too much for you to handle. So, what do I do? Luo demands. Setsu tilts her head, a challenge in her eyes. Have you forgotten your own request? The memory surfaces. You begged me, she recalls. You were the one who asked to learn the Sword Saint style. The train screams through the landscape, cutting the wind. High above, on the roof of a speeding car, Luo and Setsu stand ready. The real training begins now. The wind is brutal up here, Luo shouts over the roar. Perfect, Setsu replies calmly. We will use the storm to train. When we sparred, Setsu lectures. Your prana control was rudimentary. It did not go beyond the basics. You are greedy for skills, she observes. You force techniques that your current prana reserves cannot support. It is inefficient. The Sword Saint style demands high-level prana manipulation, not brute force. But Luo frowns. Forcing the techniques. That is how I get stronger. Wrong. Setsu's expression hardens. Let me correct a misunderstanding. In our last duel, I was not even trying. She steps back, putting distance between them. A stray leaf drifts on the violent wind, spiraling toward the heavens. Asterisk, blink. Asterisk, Setsu vanishes. Before Luo can twitch, she is behind him. This, she whispers, is the movement of the Sword Saint style. The essence is speed beyond sight, she explains, her voice cutting through the wind. Currently, you are moving in slow motion. She sees his discouragement, but listen closely, follow my lead, and you will master the third technique. The third technique, Explosive Blade. The king of destruction. It is the crown jewel of our style. Luo nods, recognition flashing in his eyes. In his past, his limit was the explosive blade. The 4th and 5th forms were myths he could never touch. Setsu's gaze softens with hidden regret. It frustrates me that I could not complete the style, she murmurs. I am entrusting the rest to you. Luo catches the flicker of pain in the knight's face. He steels himself. No more excuses. Setsu pulls out a length of cord. Lesson 1, she commands. We start with this rope. A flashback hits Luo like a physical blow, a training doll, speaking in a doll's voice. The explosive blade is for mass slaughter. The memory echoes. Watch closely, boy. In the memory, a doll moves. One swing. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. The world erupts. The surrounding terrain disintegrates in a cataclysm of power. Luo stares at the memory of the cratered cave wall, awe and terror mixing in his soul. That was not swordsmanship. That was a natural disaster shaped like a blade. Back in the present, Setsu announces that the first lesson begins now. They will utilize the very rope she purchased earlier. Lo smirks, asking if she intends to tie him up, but the knight shuts him down instantly. He is not to get the wrong idea. She then prepares to demonstrate the true technique. With a flick of her wrist, the swordsman lashes the rope forward. It strikes with blinding speed and surgical precision. She declares the lesson will be complete once Lo can replicate that strike, tossing him the rope. The lad attempts a throw, but the cord buckles pitifully in midair. Asterisk, snap, asterisk, the tip recoils, slapping him right in the face. As Lo complains that the wind pressure is fighting him, Setsu nods grimly that resistance is exactly the point. The knight explains the core principle. Prana flourishes with flow. It must be channeled to detonate with instantaneous power. She concludes that this is the ultimate skill he must conquer, a devastating power boost achieved through maximum, instantaneous output. Lo nods, determination setting in. He prepares to swing the rope once more. He injects raw prana into his arm and lashes out. The rope snaps successfully, but Setsu is unimpressed. The timing was a disaster. He needs to calculate the flow, not just force it. The lad focuses, brow furrowed, admitting the difficulty. Frustrated, he decides to flood the rope with even more prana to brute force the result. Stop, the knight interrupts immediately. That is the one thing he must never do. Relying on brute strength breeds bad habits and will never teach him the true technique. She warns him gravely that the technique he seeks to master already devours an immense amount of prana. She continues, insisting that through this exercise, he will learn to wield his energy with lethal efficiency. Lo cuts her off with a scoff. Running out of energy? Impossible. He claims he could burn dozens of times that amount and not even break a sweat. Setsu narrows her eyes. She challenges him to release everything he has. The lad accepts the dare. Lo unleashes a tsunami of overwhelming energy. The knight stares, her composure shattering in the face of this raw power. Meanwhile, inside the train, Thomas Bellelin panics, asking Luke what just happened. Even the appraiser is stunned, feeling the suffocating density of the prana. Realizing it is even greater than before, she wonders in disbelief. Has Lo evolved again in such a short time? The terrifying aura floods the department store car, seizing the attention of every passenger on board. A man turns in fright, wondering what kind of monster walks among them. In the library, another figure senses the absurd pressure, questioning if a single-digit ranker has boarded. But the mysterious man analyzes deeper. Yes, the power is vast, but it is unrefined. It is riddled with openings waiting to be exploited. The subject returns to his book, a cold glint in his eye. Only half a day remains until the next phase of the operation begins. Outside the train, Lo continues to pour out his overwhelming aura, shaking the very air. Setsu admits it to herself, this boy is far beyond anything she anticipated. The sheer quantity makes her question his humanity. Yet, she sees this as a stroke of luck. Such power will terrify their enemies. In terms of sheer volume, Lo might already stand at the world's apex. Memories of Lord Adal surface. The knight realizes the truth. His apprentice is a genuine monster. Back in the cabin, Luke waits, her device glowing in her hand. She welcomes the duo back, asking about the training. Setsu reports that Lo is on the verge of clearing the first lesson. The lad asks for the roadmap. Setsu reveals there are 3 lessons total, and tomorrow will be hell. She then pivots, asking if Thomas is in his room, and Luke confirms. Surprised by her insight, Setsu explains she can sense his prana signature. Everyone possesses it, but few have the skill to wield it. Lo is surprised to learn she has such sensory capabilities. The knight replies that for a practitioner of her style, this is the bare minimum. She states that she now understands how much prana the lad wastes daily. This training is the key to correcting that flaw. Seizing the moment of Thomas's absence, the appraiser hands a document to Lo. It is time to talk business. The swordsman asks what this is. Luke explains. It is a comprehensive analysis of their protection target. The appraiser praises the knight's foresight. Setsu nods. This is standard protocol for everyone in the Order of Marcus Knights. Lo begins scanning the dossier on Thomas Bellelin, the second-generation president of the massive Bellelin Trading Company. The empire began as a humble pharmaceutical firm, but exploded in growth under the iron management of Thomas's father. Thomas himself took the reins and expanded the department store sector, transforming it into the country's largest titan. Lo comments that he seems to be an incredible man. Luke adds a soft detail: he is also a genuinely good person. Setsu offers a sharper observation. The businessman is cautious, yes, but he hides an explosive temper. His initial distrust was just a spark of that fire. She predicts that although he is quiet now, he will eventually demand to leave the room. Luke then prepares to share her own intel with the group. The appraiser reveals that she researched the assassins, pulling data directly from the Appraisal Bureau database. She recalls their battle with Dalkin. She explains that in danger zones like the Azavan Forest, standard communication is dead. For ranking updates, they rely on a special encrypted line for absolute security. Returning to the grim reality, Luke notes the 3 assassins moved with eerie coordination, and Setsu agrees. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Normally, assassins work alone to remain invisible ghosts. However, this level of surgical precision indicates they were recruited as a coordinated team. Tracking a single killer is nearly impossible, but tracking an entire squad? That leaves a trail even the blind could see. Their weaponry and tactical radius expose their true identity. There is no doubt. They belong to the Despota Group, the 49th ranked organization in the criminal underworld. They serve directly under Desdora, the 6th most powerful syndicate. Their high command consists solely of elite-tier assassins. Tension grips Lo and Setsu. If those elite commanders are aboard this train, the threat level has just skyrocketed beyond their control. Elsewhere, a figure rises in the library. He stalks down the corridor, his presence masked but his intent lethal. Sliding into a window seat, he pulls a cryptic object from beneath the table. A note with a cipher confirms. Preparations are complete. Irritation flares within him. His subordinates are trembling before Lo's overwhelming prana. He realizes he must dirty his own hands to get the job done. The assassin Joman, ranked 108, makes his vow. He will execute this mission personally. Back in the dining car, the group finishes their meal. Thomas Bellelin leans back, rubbing his stomach in pure satisfaction with the feast. He declares the food the highlight of the journey, well worth the heavy price tag. Lo just sighs, Poison testing every single dish was a total drag. He invites Luke to join in, but the appraiser declines. To properly evaluate Lo's power, he needs to observe the boy's state, not share his meal. Bululin stands up abruptly. He announces a shopping spree to aid his digestion and barks an order for them to protect him. They stroll through the lavish department store carriage. The client's eyes glitter with greed as he admires the luxury goods. He scrutinizes a rare porcelain piece, criticizing its quality. Watching from the shadows, Lo prays the client would just control himself. The female knight shakes her head. It is better to let the man indulge his desires to keep his stress levels manageable. A happy client cooperates during emergencies. She announces she will patrol the perimeter, leaving Lo to guard Mr. Thomas. Luke queries the swordsman about his training. Lo admits it is brutal, but his stamina has surged thanks to efficient prana control. The appraiser presses further, asking if he has ever completely depleted his energy. Lo pauses, then gives a chilling answer, no. Luke frowns. That makes no sense. Hitting zero energy should be a daily occurrence during intense training cycles. Is it simply because his reserves are massive? No. The appraiser realizes the truth is far more of an anomaly than simple talent. He explains that Lo's poetic art devours a catastrophic amount of energy in a single heartbeat. Luke assumed the art erased whatever Lo touched, but if that were true, his clothes and the very floor beneath him should vanish instantly. Lo muses that such high consumption must yield a massive effect. The appraiser steps in, offering a terrifying hypothesis. Luke suggests the truth. His art is not destruction. It is the absolute elimination of anything that threatens his existence. Lo finds the definition vague, yet undeniable. However, this godlike power is not invincible. It acts like a single-shot cannon. One use leaves him immobile and drained, making the risk far deadlier than the reward. Setsu returns, apologizing for the delay. As expected, the rats refuse to scurry into the light voluntarily. Lo sharpens his senses. Suddenly, darkness swallows the car. The lights die completely, plunging everyone into shock. Panic erupts. Passengers scream into the void, demanding the power be restored immediately. Lo recognizes the strategy. Chaos is their cover. Setsu steels herself. A rash move now means certain death. Thomas shrieks, revealing his position to the hunters. Setsu hisses for silence, but a surprise attack slams squarely into the knight's chest. They tracked him by sound. She tries to lock onto the enemy's prana, but the chaotic crowd masks their signature completely. Lo steps up from the shadows. He asks calmly if he should light up the darkness. Setsu nods, confused. The boy tells her to guard the target, then launches himself upward, using the ceiling as a foothold. He detonates his internal energy. A blinding flare of prana explodes, illuminating the entire carriage like a second sun. A child points, thinking it is a magic show. The knight feels the raw power and roars for Lo to hold the light until the grid comes back online. The swordsman obeys, his eyes scanning. There, the light exposes one assassin hiding among the sheep. Joman bursts from the crowd. The assassin locks eyes with the boy, recognizing the monstrous source of that prana. He launches a devastating strike against the train car itself. The impact is catastrophic, blasting Lo backward with brutal force. The boy lands, instantly shifting into a combat stance. Joman stares him down from the other side of the wreckage. Hefting a massive axe, the assassin grins. Let the monster hunt begin. Meanwhile, Setsu realizes the explosion has cut her off. An assassin lunges at her from the gloom. She spots the glint of a blade painted void black to hide in the dark. She realizes their tactic. The elite hunter went for Lo, leaving the scraps for her. Do they truly underestimate a knight this much? She weaves past a lethal kick. Setsu raises her weapon, her eyes burning with cold, unwavering determination. With a single, earth-shattering blow, she banishes the aggressor into the void. Another attacker freezes, mind racing to comprehend the impossible speed. Was that a bomb? An art that detonates pure prana? His memory flickers. The only warning was the terrifying sound of that woman unsheathing her blade. In the blink of an eye, the swordswoman had already brandished her steel 3 distinct times. The remaining enemy strains his eyes through the encroaching darkness, terrified by the glowing points of energy surrounding her. No prana fluctuation? It's a trap. Prolonging this means death. He decides to strike now, before the lights return. Setsu's voice echoes from the past. The heavy blade lotus. A secret technique of accumulating severance. Countless dormant cuts waiting for a trigger. One final strike acts as the catalyst, causing them to erupt all at once. By withholding the detonating blow, and stacking strikes of identical power with perfect balance, she primes the ultimate technique. A slash bomb capable of obliterating the enemy in a single, simultaneous burst of destruction. Bodies hit the floor. The knight declares the truth. The pinnacle of the Sword Saint style is omnipotence in a single strike. Even if another successor walks the earth, she will never yield this title. She proclaims to the heavens that she alone grasps the true essence of the style. Flashback to Lo's training. the impossible becomes reality. He swings the rope, and it stretches into a perfect, razor-straight line above the train car. Setsu smiles. That is it. Burn that sensation into your soul. This is fluidity, a legendary technique rare even among high-level rankers. Master this, and his power efficiency will transcend human limits. Reality snaps back. The confrontation between Lo and Jomon amidst the wreckage of the destroyed car. Predator and prey lock eyes across the gap. The swordsman grips his weapon, steeling his resolve for the clash to come. They explode into motion. Two silhouettes blur, weapons colliding with a shockwave that screams through the air. Jomon's eyes widen. Can this brat use fluidity? The assassin stops holding back and unleashes his full, terrifying aura. The force acts like a cannonball, flinging the youth across the carriage. Panic erupts. Among the passengers, are they witnessing a war between monsters known as rankers? Jomon sneers with twisted admiration. Lo has a promising future. What a waste to snap him in half now. The boy rises, admitting his opponent is on a completely different level. The assassin wields fluidity, like breathing. Lo wonders, is this monster from the upper echelons of Despotada? Regardless of the odds, Lo knows there is no retreat. He must fight. He attempts to mirror the technique. Fluidity activates, but fails. The blow scatters into nothingness before impact, and the recoil tears through Lo's own body. Jomon tilts his head. Is that technique incomplete? The assassin analyzes his prey with cold, calculating eyes. A tragedy of talent. He notes Lo's miraculous prana capacity. Someone should have taught the boy how to wield such godlike power. Did he grow up sheltered? An environment that shunned conflict has let such potential rot. Jomon concludes, he is a monster trapped inside a fragile shell. Taking him down will be child's play. However, if that fluidity had been perfect, Jomon would be dead. They reset their stances, the air thick with killing intent. Lo analyzes his failure. First, he lacks control. In response, the boy fires a raw burst of energy straight at Jomon. The assassin blinks in surprise. Is this self-destruction? The second flaw, fluidity and the sword saint style are like oil and water. Lo realizes he cannot weave these two supreme techniques together yet. Jomon leaps, evading the blast effortlessly. It really is a waste to let a treasure like you rot here. The executioner hurls his axe. Lo barely sidesteps death, but the assassin lunges, snatching his weapon back in midair with terrifying grace. Smash! The axe pulverizes the wall, showering Lo with razor-sharp debris. The distraction works perfectly. Jomon presses the advantage. Steel screeches against steel. Lo realizes, with horror at this angle, his blade will shatter. Desperate, he lands a kick, forcing barely enough distance to breathe. He realizes, this isn't just brute force. The opponent is a tactician. The strongest battles are fought with the mind, but Lo has faced monsters before. The Sword Saint style is formless, ever-changing like water. He prepares his counter-art. He charges, unleashing the Gale Cross Lotus Strike. Jomon scoffs the same move? Foolish. But shock replaces arrogance as the blows connect. High-speed strikes pepper him like machine gun fire, accumulating on his skin. The assassin realizes he is locked in place, unable to dodge. Yet, the impacts are laughably light. With that weak power, you could hit me 1,000 times and I wouldn't flinch. Lo simply agrees. You're right. It is light. The gale is fast but lacks the devastating weight of the lotus. However, the swordsman smiles. It was never meant to kill. It was enough to nail the enemy's feet to the floor. Controlling a storm is hard, but perfecting just one strike? That is simple. The assassin realizes the trap too late. Lo channels everything into his blade. He steps forward and delivers the true strike, hitting Jomon squarely with the force of a falling mountain.